In Jiang country, the Qingyun sect's white jade square lay beneath a haze of immortal energy. Hundreds of boys and girls sat perfectly still, trapped in the fourth assessment. The trial of heart, rage, terror, joy, and grief twisted their sleeping faces as private illusions tested every candidate's will. A soft groan broke the stillness. Lu Changsheng's eyes snapped open, and both hands flew to his aching head. Memories surged through his mind like a breached river. They did not belong only to the 18 years he had already lived. They came from another life and another world. Lu finally understood. He had traveled into a world of fantasy and immortality. He had lived here for 18 years without recovering the mystery of his former existence. Only now, inside Qingyun sect's heart trial, had those memories awakened. His apparent triumph over the illusion was really the collision of two lives. The examiners were startled. Someone had awakened first, and that suggested a top-notch Dao heart. Then they checked the rest of Lu's record. He was 18, had shown only mediocre perseverance in an earlier stage, and possessed a 9th grade spiritual root. Their excitement cooled into regret. Lu did not need to hear their discussion to know the problem. During the first assessment, the talent test had exposed his 9th grade spiritual root, the worst grade. Cultivating immortality with it would be brutally difficult, and any future achievement would be limited. Determination alone could not open Qingyun sect's door, but Lu's recovered memories had brought something else into focus, the multiple blessing system. Its path did not demand peerless personal talent. If he had many children, cultivated them well, and built a flourishing family, he could gain blessings through them and rise as its patriarch. His immortal path was narrow, but no longer dark. Voices erupted around him. One candidate begged his parents not to leave. Another insisted everything had been an illusion. Someone laughed that he had become an immortal, while another shouted at the vision trying to deceive him. The trial of heart released its victims one by one, each still carrying the emotion of what they had seen. The 5 candidates beside Lu stared in surprise when they realized he was already awake. He casually said it had only been a little while. They had traveled here together. 16-year-old Hong Yi, a Marcus's son with an 8th grade root, and 15-year-old Han Lin, a blacksmith's child with a 7th grade root. Li Feiyu was 18, a young Crimson Whale gang leader with a 7th grade root. Xiao Xue, a scholarly family's 15-year-old daughter, possessed an exceptional 4th grade root. Zhao Qingqing, 16, and born to a physician, had a 6th grade root. They knew one another, but mostly because strangers seek warmth together in unfamiliar places. When everyone had awakened, a Qingyun sect executor floated above the square and opened a jade scroll. Conversation died instantly. One name followed another. Every successful candidate brightened with joy and longing for an immortal future. Those passed over grew heavier with each name, waiting for a call that might never come. Then came 3 familiar names: Han Lin, Xiao Xue, Zhao Qingqing. Their place in Qingyun sect was secured. Lu, Hong Yi, and Li Feiyu kept listening, but the executor rolled the jade scroll closed. The silence after the final name delivered their answer more harshly than any explanation could. Li Feiyu stared at the closed list, unwilling to accept it. Hong Yi bit his lip until his face turned pale. His noble family had spent money and connections trying to ease his admission, yet an 8th grade root remained an 8th grade root. Here, worldly rank could not force open an immortal gate. Lu sighed. The rejection still weighed on him. Qingyun sect would have offered the safest and clearest road into cultivation, yet the blow did not crush him. The multiple blessing system meant this was not the end of his immortal path. If the orthodox gate stayed closed, he would have to find another place to begin. The executor ordered everyone else to leave the sect immediately. Then one sweep of a sleeve summoned auspicious mist beneath the chosen candidates. Han Lin, Xiao Xiwei, Zhao Qingqing, and the other successful youths rose into the clouds. Their rejected companions could only watch as the distance between them became literal. Several hundred rejected youths left with bitter faces. Some wept openly as they crossed the gate, mourning that immortals and mortals would now lead separate lives. They could still attempt cultivation, but without a sect they would be loose cultivators, lacking the same protection, inheritance, and prospects enjoyed by official disciples. Lu possessed a system that rewarded descendants, but that promise did not solve his first problem. He still needed cultivation methods, resources, and somewhere touched by spiritual energy. Qingyun sect had refused him, while the life of an unsupported loose cultivator offered danger and little certainty. Before building a family, he needed a foundation. Then a man called after the rejected youths with an offer tailored so perfectly to Lu's predicament that the entire road seemed to pause. The Lu family of Qingzhou Mountain wanted 20 sons-in-law. In return, it offered access to spiritual vein blessed lands and cultivation manuals. Lu turned toward the speaker. A family and a path had appeared together. The offer sent a thrill through the rejected youths. It moved Lu Changsheng too. A cultivation family could provide everything Qingyun sect had denied him, and becoming a son-in-law was hardly shameful if it opened the road to immortality. Even so, Lu stayed silent. Gifts this convenient demanded inspection. Someone asked the question Lu wanted answered. Cultivation families rarely invested in foreign bloodlines, so why recruit outsiders now? The man in green answered candidly. The Lu family had lost too many of its younger generation. It needed sons-in-law because it needed fresh bloodlines. The price was staggering. Within 20 years, each son-in-law had to father 50 children. The task would also count as complete with one child possessing a middle-grade spiritual root, or 3 possessing lower-grade spiritual roots. In return came a spiritual vein dojo, cultivation techniques, and monthly cultivation resources. Hong Yi supplied the missing verification. The Qingzhou Mountain family was legitimate, and even had a foundation establishment ancestor. Its losses were real too. A battle with the Chen family of Red Leaf Valley over a spirit stone mine had killed many of its young and strong. Hong's manner had changed. Earlier, his noble birth had made him dismissive of poorer companions. Now Han Lin and Zhao Qingqing had entered Qingyun sect while he had failed. He understood that cultivation would erase much of the distance between princes, merchants, and servants, and that Lu might become a valuable friend. That confirmation settled it for now. Becoming a Lu family son-in-law was the sensible choice. Their land, manuals, and resources could carry Lu through the dangerous beginning that talent alone could not overcome. After that, the multiple blessing system and the family it rewarded him for building could open the sky. Lu stepped forward. "Brother Lu, let's do this together." Li Feiyu's choice surprised Hong. Lu had come from a peasant family and possessed little to return to. Li, by contrast, was an 18-year-old vice-gang leader of the sizable Crimson Whale gang. Yet after a visible struggle, he chose this uncertain path into cultivation beside Lu. Lu Yuanding hesitated when he learned that Lu possessed only a 9th-grade spiritual root. Better roots meant a better chance of producing spiritually talented children, and Lu was a poor prospect by that measure. But Li possessed a 7th-grade spiritual root, and with the two presenting themselves together, the Patriarch accepted them. Lu Yuanding made the danger explicit before taking their word. Once they went to Qingzhou Mountain, there would be no turning back. They would sign a contract. Failure within 20 years meant repaying 3 times every resource received and then serving the Lu family for 10 more years. Lu and Li exchanged one look and agreed. Half an hour later, all 20 positions were filled. Every recruit was young, humble in background, and without notable connections. Some nobles could not lower themselves to accept such a role, but the family did not want powerful outside ties either. Lu Yuanding had assembled men who needed the opportunity, and whom the Lu family could securely absorb. Only then did the recruiter formally identify himself. He was Lu Yuanding, Patriarch of the Lu family. From this point on, the 20 men were to address him as family head. The title clarified the scale of Lu Changsheng's decision. The bargain had been offered and accepted under the Patriarch's direct authority. Lu Yuanding opened a pouch bordered with golden thread. White light streamed from its mouth and struck the ground one after another, becoming majestic horses with bright yellow coats, golden manes, and powerful limbs. The rejected disciples who had watched Qingyun's chosen fly away on auspicious clouds stared at their more earthbound transportation. It was not the soaring departure granted to Qingyun sect disciples. Still, these were spiritual steeds, and they were carrying Lu toward the cultivation foundation he had chosen. With Li Feiyu among the same band of 20, and Lu Yuanding leading them, Lu Changsheng left the sect gate behind and began the road to Qingzhou Mountain. After their first full day on the road, night found Lu Yuanding's party camped in the wilderness. Lu Changsheng had never learned to ride, yet the bright yellow spiritual steed beneath him had carried him all day without leaving him badly fatigued. These mounts truly belonged to another world. One young man asked how much farther Qingzhou Mountain lay. Lu Yuanding answered matter-of-factly, the steeds could cross 1,000 miles in a day, and even so, the journey would take more than half a month. The recruits traded grim looks. Lu Changsheng could only marvel at the distance. Lu Yuanding dismissed their gloom with a practical solution. From a porcelain bottle, he distributed brown fasting pills. One pill would prevent hunger for an entire month. Lu Changsheng examined the soybean-sized elixir, then swallowed it. He was already aboard this venture, and the Lu family had no reason to poison its own recruits. While several youths sat cross-legged and practiced cultivation techniques they already possessed, Li Feiyu trained alone. Lu had learned more about his quiet companion on the road. Li was the 18-year-old deputy leader of the Crimson Whale Gang, and already counted among the mortal martial world's top experts. After repeated cycles of riding and rest, the party finally neared Qingzhou Mountain. Exhaustion and the promise of safety had lowered everyone's guard. Then hidden enemies struck. Ice cones tore into the mounted column before the recruits understood they were under attack. 3 immortal seedlings were pierced through the chest and knocked lifeless from their steeds. Lu Changsheng swallowed hard, his face paling. He had come from another world, but neither that life nor this one had shown him slaughter firsthand. Now the truth was unavoidable. This was the cultivation world. Laughter rolled across the wrecked column as cultivators burst from the earth. Their leader was a tall, middle-aged man in a crimson robe. Lu Yuanding recognized him at once. Chen Shuisheng, Patriarch of the Chen family of Redleaf Valley, the Qingzhou Lu family's old enemy, and bold enough to strike at their doorstep. Lu Yuanding burned a yellow transmission talisman, sending an urgent call to his family. Chen Shuisheng understood the race immediately. He ordered a quick kill, summoned biting cold, and drove ice spikes at Lu Yuanding, while his 10 followers unleashed their spells not at the Lu escorts but at the immortal seedlings. Lu Changsheng had no cultivation technique and no answer to a spell aimed at his life. In the chaos, Li Feiyu reacted with the speed his martial reputation promised and pulled Lu out of the killing line. The road had turned their casual acquaintance into a debt of life. Changsheng and the remaining youths could only huddle like lambs awaiting slaughter and pray that the Lu cultivators held long enough. Before the defense broke, sharp sounds pierced the air. Figures were flying from Qingzhou Mountain toward the battlefield. Changsheng recognized the answer to Lu Yuanding's talisman and made his decision without hesitation. With a single order to withdraw, he led the Chen cultivators away before the reinforcements could close. One reinforcement descended swiftly to Lu Yuanding. She wore a fluttering snow-white gown, and concern softened her clear stream-like voice as she asked, "Daddy, are you all right?" This was no unexplained stranger. Lu Miaoge was the family head's daughter, arriving first as a child worried for her father. Even after a lifetime exposed to manufactured beauty in his former world's internet age, Lu Changsheng was stunned. Lu Miaoge's jade-white skin, autumn-water eyes, delicate features, and elegant bearing made her seem like an unworldly snow lotus. Fresh from death's edge, his thoughts still found their familiar direction. If he married a woman like her, what children might they have? After the bloodshed on the road, the survivors finally entered Qingzhou Mountain. The name was misleading. This was an entire range, bright with translucent green bamboo. Fresh, humid air replaced the smell of violence, while streams, colorful birds, and cultivated terraces made the Lu family's domain resemble a secluded paradise. The recruits were placed at Qingzhou Villa on the mountain's outer edge. Lu Yuanding told them a first-grade spirit vine ran beneath it. They would live here and cultivate. He also repeated the crucial promise, satisfy the agreement they had accepted, and afterward they could either remain with the family or leave. Lu Yuanding departed after ordering Uncle Fu to settle them. Gray-haired and slightly stooped, the villa's administrator led the group through its formalities and grounds. Qingzhou Villa also housed the family's average collateral seedlings. Exceptional talents lived deeper in the mountain, where a second-grade spirit vine made the energy far denser. Along the route, Lu family disciples stared at the newcomers as though they were curious animals. Their eyes carried open arrogance. Lu remained calm. Whatever polite title the family used, these recruits had entered through marriage and reproduction rather than talent. Protection and a spirit vine did not erase their low standing. That night, Lu sat down to cultivate. Under his deliberate control, spiritual energy gathered almost imperceptibly and entered through the pores across his body. It had to traverse a complete cycle before even one strand could remain in his Dantian Qi. Every small gain demanded patience and concentration. The circulating energy was not useless. It nourished Lu's flesh, veins, and bones, gradually driving impurities from his body in a process of marrow cleansing. But when night finally gave way to morning, all that effort had left only the faintest cool aura in his Dantian. Now Lu truly understood his 9th grade spiritual root. Even with a spirit vein, reaching the first level of Qi refinement at this pace would take ages. Elsewhere it would be worse. Cultivation through effort alone was unrealistic. With a deep sigh, he chose his real advantage. He would have to rely on the system. Lu had barely wondered when the family would arrange a wife when his courtyard bells rang. Uncle Fu waited beyond the door with the other recruits. The Lu family, he announced, had prepared a reception to welcome them and wash away the dust of travel. Lu sensed the likely purpose and agreed to follow. Uncle Fu gathered all 12 surviving immortal seedlings and led them into a spacious, elegant hall. No hosts or guests waited inside. There were only 12 carefully arranged seats, one for each recruit. The empty formality sharpened Lu's hunch that this was not an ordinary feast. Then the Lu family's secular branch women entered, transforming the empty hall into a marriage gathering. Uncle Fu praised them as literate, well-mannered, virtuous, and accomplished. Their task today was to receive the recruits warmly. Each man could choose the woman he favored, and Uncle Fu would arrange the wedding. Once Uncle Fu withdrew, the women approached the seats themselves. They had not been coerced into coming. Most descended from cultivators, and they understood the bargain. Find a suitable immortal seedling, bear children who might possess spiritual roots, and gain standing through those children. In this room, the women held much of the choosing power. Lu Changsheng had a peasant background, an ordinary face, and the weakest sort of spiritual root. Unsurprisingly, only 3 women came to him. He did not resent the comparison, or pretend he deserved a crowd. 3 attractive prospective wives were already far beyond what his previous life would have offered him. The 3 offered distinct charms. One seemed pure, lovely, and playful. Another was innocent yet alluring, somehow carrying both purity and desire. The 3rd looked gentle and graceful, with the bearing of a well-bred lady. 2 shared enough features that Lu suspected they might be sisters. His decision became very simple. Rather than hesitate or select only one, Lu accepted all 3. The other recruit's restraint only made his initiative more conspicuous, but he saw no reason to discard such good fortune. Uncle Fu's arrangements turned the choice into 3 marriages. Lu Lanshu, Lu Zier, and Lu Qing'er became the household through which Lu would pursue his system's path. Half a month after marrying Lu Lanshu, Lu Zier, and Lu Qing'er, Lu Changsheng had barely cultivated. His 9th grade spiritual root promised painfully little, so he had concentrated on the family root offered by his system. The first result arrived quickly. Lanshu was pregnant. The motives behind the child were partly practical, but Lu's happiness was not. In either life, this was his first chance to become a father. He had already chosen 2 names, Pingan for a boy, Zhi'il for a girl. More than ambition, he wanted this child to know peace and joy. In Jingzhu Villa's Grand Hall, Patriarch Lu Yuanding declared that the Lu family clearly separated rewards from punishments. Lu had married 3 Lu women and gotten Lanshu pregnant within half a month. That performance earned 4 rewards: a lower-grade flying sword, a Qingzhu vestment robe, yellow dragon elixir, and 100 catties of spirit rice. The sword alone was worth 50 spirit stones. The robe was worth 30, while the rice and elixir were worth 10 each. 100 spirit stones in all. The other immortal seedlings could only envy him. Yet the Lu family could not offer that fortune for every child. When Lu Qing'er also became pregnant, there was no second 100-stone windfall. More than half a month later, Lu Zier became the 3rd wife confirmed pregnant. In a little over 2 months, Lu had succeeded with all 3, leaving the other recruits wondering whether he cultivated at all. The result was not blind desperation. He had calculated their ovulation periods and used the pregnancy tonic supplied by the Lu family. With all 3 wives pregnant, Lu finally resumed serious cultivation. Uncle Fu sent 2 fair-skinned, attractive maids to manage the household, and their implied second purpose was obvious. Lu wanted many children, but not at the cost of ruining himself. Cultivation let him feel how repeated exertion depleted his vital essence, weakened his body, and slowed his recovery. More than half a year passed, Lu did not abandon either half of his plan. He cultivated into the first level of Qi Refinement, then gradually accepted the 2 maids as concubines and got both pregnant. His value to the Lu family rose again, and his monthly allowance increased to 3 spirit stones and 20 jin of spirit rice. Thinking that Lanshu's delivery must be near, Lu rose and adjusted the Qingzhu robe he had been awarded. It fitted itself to him, resisted heat and cold, and shed dust despite not being a magical artifact. After spending time with his wives and concubines, he visited Li Feiyu, his only close friend among the recruits. Half a month later, Lanshu went into labor. Lu waited outside the room, listening to her cries while his fists repeatedly clenched and opened. Li Feiyu assured him that Qingzhou Villa's spiritual energy had strengthened her, and a cultivator was assisting the delivery. Lu insisted he was not nervous, only excited and happy. His restless eyes betrayed him. Li asked whether Lu had chosen a name. Although the Lu family would raise the child, Lu retained a father's right to name it, and because his own surname was Lu, there was no dispute over that. For a boy, his answer was Ping'an. Then the delivery ended, and Lu Changsheng finally held his newborn son. The moment was personal, but it was also the proof Lu had been waiting for. With his first child safely born, the multiple blessing system finally responded. A mechanical voice announced the reward. Lu Changsheng had obtained his first lottery draw. His family path had not merely begun, it had opened a new route to power. Still holding his newborn son, Lu Changsheng entered the birthing room and sat beside the exhausted Lu Lanshu. He took her hand and softly told her she had worked hard. Pale and weak, she smiled and called him husband. He immediately urged her not to move and simply rest. For one warm moment, Lu thought living like this forever might be enough. Then he remembered the Chen family's assassination attempt and this world's law of survival. Without strength, even leaving the Lu family could cost him his child. Happiness needed protection, and he had not crossed worlds merely to remain mediocre. Not because the Lu family was claiming him, but because Lu did not know how to care for an infant. Ping'an's spiritual root could not manifest until age 5 or 6, so that mystery would have to wait. Back in his room, Lu silently called, "System, I want to draw a lottery." A pale red virtual wheel appeared and delivered the result. Full-level second-rank talisman-making skill. Lu stared at the reward in disbelief. His first draw had not produced a minor aid. It had handed him mastery. Lu immediately apologized to the system for underestimating it. He had spent months learning how the cultivation world worked, so he understood that professions such as alchemy, artifact refining, formations, beast taming, gardening, medicinal cooking, spirit identification, mining, and especially talisman making demanded both talent and wealth. Among those professions, formations, alchemy, artifact refining, and talisman making were particularly coveted. Second-rank talismans corresponded to the Foundation establishment stage, one full realm above Qi Refinement. With this mastery revealed, Lu could become an honored guest, even a guest elder among cultivation families and other powers. Lu activated the skill without hesitation. Knowledge surged into his mind, an introduction to talismans, complete collections of basic and first-rank talismans, and the higher methods contained in full second-rank mastery. The system had not merely shown him manuals, it had made the discipline part of him. The excitement lasted only until Lu considered how he looked to everyone else. An immortal sect reject who had barely begun cultivation and lived at the Lu family's expense. If such a man suddenly displayed master-level skill, suspicion was inevitable. The system could not protect him from every question his success would raise. Nor could Lu assume the family would simply honor him. At present, they supported him as a son-in-law whose value lay in producing children. If he exposed his skill too quickly, they might only exchange one form of control for another, turning their breeding partner into a talisman-making tool. Lu chose patience. First, he would buy a brush, paper, ink, and materials, then visibly practice like a beginner. After that, he could reveal talent step by step, first enough to earn the Lu family's attention, later first-rank competence, and eventually his second-rank mastery. A believable progression could raise his status without exposing the system. For the first time, Lu felt genuinely confident about his future in this world. The system had proven its worth, yet caution remained essential. If he kept having children, avoided needless trouble, and advanced without exposing his secrets, then even falling short of immortality would not leave him ordinary. The next morning, Lu acted. Wearing the same Qingzhu vestment robe, he took out the lower-grade flying sword previously awarded to him and headed through Qingzhu Villa toward the 100 Treasures Pavilion. The visit looked ordinary, which was exactly what his carefully manufactured beginning required. The 100 Treasures Pavilion functioned like a cultivation department store. It carried magical artifacts, elixirs, talismans, spirit rice, spirit vegetables, demon beast meat, and ordinary necessities. Lu already came each month for meat and vegetables containing spiritual energy. Elixirs worked faster, but their price remained beyond his routine budget. At the counter, Lu asked for an ordinary set of talisman-making tools and materials. The request immediately told the familiar shopkeeper that this dependent son-in-law intended to learn the profession. Rather than rush to make a sale, the man paused and warned Lu that the path was far more expensive than it looked. A beginner, the shopkeeper explained, might fail 100 times on one talisman. Poor aptitude could mean several hundred failures. Changing designs brought another brutal failure rate. And becoming even an elementary talisman master demanded thousands upon thousands of attempts. Because Lu had worked diligently and made 5 women pregnant within a year, the warning was sincere. The shopkeeper expected his warning to frighten Lu away. Instead, it finally showed Lu what the system had truly given him. Ordinary novices might spend tens of thousands of attempts merely becoming elementary talisman masters, and a lifetime still might not carry them to 2nd grade. Even 1st grade was divided into inferior, middle, superior, and top-level mastery. 2nd grade followed the same ladder. Lu had not received an entry-level trick. His transferred knowledge placed him at full mastery of the 2nd grade, a top-level 2nd grade talisman master. That settled the matter. Lu met the shopkeeper's gaze and said he still wanted to try. The harder the profession was for everyone else, the better his hidden advantage became. The merchant sighed, accepted that young men learned by striking the wall themselves, and agreed to sell. The ordinary wolf hair brush alone cost 20 spirit stones and was built for beginner work, not effortless high-grade production. Lu nevertheless took the practical setup. The shopkeeper put away Lu's lower-grade flying sword, brought out the requested brush, paper, and ink, then returned 13 spirit stones in change. Lu's system knowledge already contained many talisman designs, but instant expertise without study would be absurdly suspicious. If he meant to put on an act, he would do it properly. He visited the Lu family library, spent 1 spirit stone, and borrowed Introduction to Talismans and Complete Collection of Basic Talismans. Back in his study, Lu arranged the brush, paper, spiritual ink, and borrowed books across the desk. Then he examined the numbers. Materials for 100 talismans cost about 22 spirit stones. Lower-grade successes could multiply that investment 5 to 10 times. Middle-grade talismans could return more than 20-fold. With full 2nd grade mastery, turning these materials into middle-grade, 1st grade talismans would be easy. Yet the common brush was designed only for basic, lower-grade, and middle-grade work. Forcing higher quality through it would be needlessly difficult. More importantly, Lu needed to appear like a beginner, not a miracle. Lu settled at the desk, dipped the wolf hair brush into the prepared spiritual ink, and began. The transferred knowledge guided every movement, but this was the first time his own hand had to carry spiritual power through a real brush and preserve the design across real paper. Light rose from the paper. Faint spiritual fluctuations moved through the fresh lines, rapidly solidifying the ink before the glow circulated and faded. A lower-grade, 1st grade flame bullet talisman lay complete. Only then did Lu release his breath, smiling at the proof in front of him. A trace of spiritual power could trigger the talisman and release a fire bullet comparable to a 3rd-level Qi Refinement technique. Lu was only at the 1st level. Casting that technique himself would empty him. Yet the same reserve could create 2 or 3 talismans that stored the stronger attack for later. Lu continued while his reserve allowed it. He drew a featherweight talisman, then a rejuvenation insignia, both lower grade, first grade. The 3 successes made his professional mastery undeniable, but they also exposed its present leash. His first-level spiritual power and mental stamina could not sustain another attempt. Lu carefully stored the flame bullet, featherweight, and rejuvenation talismans. Knowledge was no longer the question. Cultivation was. He sat in meditation through the night, restoring the spiritual power and energy spent on his first batch. By morning, his hidden profession had passed its first real test. Another month passed after Lu's first talisman successes. Then, Lu Qing'e gave birth to a son. Lu Changsheng welcomed the child eagerly and waited for the familiar system reward. Nothing came. After tasting that first lottery's sweetness, he could not help feeling disappointed. On reflection, Lu admitted the silence made sense. If every birth paid an achievement reward, he could ignore raising his children and simply chase numbers. He did not name the boy yet. At his wife's request, he agreed to wait and name both sisters' children together. 20 days later, Lu Zier delivered a daughter. Again, the system gave no response, confirming Lu's suspicion that another threshold had to be reached. Yet his disappointment did not touch the child. With 1 son and 1 daughter now before him, he was genuinely delighted. The family named the boy Lu Weiyu and the girl Lu Weiyu. Like the names Ping'an and Jie that Lu had considered before, they carried a simple wish. May these children grow safely and without worry. Lu quietly wished for his own cultivation path to be just as peaceful. A month later, Lu entered the 100 Treasures Pavilion with 5 cleansing talismans. His hidden mastery could not appear overnight. He had spent nearly 3 months constructing a believable beginner's trail, and now he calmly asked the shopkeeper whether the pavilion bought such talismans and what they were worth. The shopkeeper was caught off guard. Lu Changsheng was known as an outsider brought in to produce descendants, not as a craftsman. Yet here he stood with talismans of his own making. The shopkeeper gathered the 5 slips from the counter and began examining them one by one. The lines were rough and the quality low, exactly as Lu intended, but every talisman was valid. Hearing that these 5 successes came from 100 sets of materials, the shopkeeper grew impressed. Even with only 1 repeated design, that result showed considerable talent. Lu's false ceiling had been accepted. Talent did not make cleansing talismans valuable. The shopkeeper explained that basic talismans served mostly everyday needs, so demand was poor. Still, the Lu family subsidized members who learned practical skills. Under that encouragement plan, the pavilion would buy 3 basic talismans for 1 spirit stone, even from an outsider like Lu. Lu had expected the low price. With his real, perfect success rate, the available materials could still earn 8 spirit stones. But revealing perfection was impossible, and spending 2 or 3 months for such a small return would reduce him to a slave. Profit from basic talismans was never the point. Credibility was. Later, in his bedroom, Lu put one of the supposedly humble talismans to practical use. The moment he activated it, a breeze swept over him, carrying away the lingering stickiness and leaving his body refreshed. For something the market barely valued, the cleansing talisman was remarkably convenient. Watching from the bed, Lu Lanshu softly protested that using a talisman for this was wasteful. She could have attended to him herself. Lu waved the concern away. These were his own work, he said, so they were not worth much to him. Lanshu's lips parted in surprise. Lanshu knew talisman making was difficult. She and the other secular branch women had married immortal seedlings with little expectation beyond their children's futures. But a capable husband changed everything: livelihood, standing among her sisters, even pride when returning home. Lu modestly admitted he seemed to have some talent. Her hope in him quietly rose. Spring became autumn, winter gave way to summer, and more than a year slipped past. Through all of it, Lu Changsheng never once left Qingzhou Villa. His life looked uneventful from outside, almost oppressively ordinary. Yet the quiet was not empty. Lu cultivated every day, practiced talisman making, and spent time with his wives and concubines. The rhythm was mundane, but to him it was full, and every part of it competed for the energy of a first-level Qi cultivator. Childbearing had slowed. Lu Lanshu, Lu Zier, and Lu Qing'er were still recovering, while 2 former maids were pregnant. The 2 women sent later had not conceived. Between cultivation and talismans, Lu simply lacked the strength to pursue every demand the family placed on him. More importantly, Lu refused to see the women around him as birthing machines. The Lu family might value him as a breeding partner, but he made time for affection and soothed tensions instead. Their gracious temperaments helped, and the 3 wives and 4 concubines lived together in genuine harmony. One pleasant day, after cultivating and drawing 2 talismans, Lu went out within the villa with a daughter and called on Li Feiyu. When talk turned to his future, Lu gave the same guarded explanation he used with outsiders. He was merely learning a craft he could someday live by. Li was the only one of the 12 immortal seedlings who had fathered no child. Even his wife remained untouched. He finally explained why. His red sun heart method forbade him from losing his virginity before innate, and Uncle Fu had granted him a temporary reprieve. After innate, Li said he would honor the contract whose resources he had accepted. He expected the breakthrough within 1 year. Then he could lock his essence, prevent his vital yang from leaking, and reserve it for having children. Lu could only stare in admiration. For a moment Lu wondered whether he should learn it too. 3 wives and 4 concubines demanded real stamina, and his present Qi refinement barely strengthened his body. Before committing to another discipline, however, he needed to know what an innate martial artist was actually worth. Lu's conclusion was stark. An innate master and a 3rd-level Qi cultivator were like warrior and mage. If the warrior reached striking distance, he might win. But closing that distance through magic artifacts, protective vestments, and talismans was another matter entirely. Holding his daughter, Lu asked whether anything existed above innate. The question soon became personal. If his children lacked spiritual roots, martial training could still make them healthy, strong, and able to defend themselves when they eventually had to leave Qingzhou Mountain. The odds were cruel. With only 1 spiritual root parent, a child had nearly a 1 to 2% chance of possessing one. That was why the Lu family demanded 50 children. Lu could not assume his sons and daughters would become cultivators or remain sheltered forever. The system deepened his suspicion. Its second feature should add his children's talents and cultivation to his own. A spiritual root would not be formally detected until 5 or 6, but it already existed before then. Since his first 3 births had produced no such gain, Lu suspected none of them possessed one. That settled the practical question. Children with spiritual roots could cultivate. Those without them could train in martial arts for strength and protection. But Lu would not follow that side path himself. Cultivation, talisman making, and his household already consumed every spare measure of time and energy. Another month passed. One of Lu's concubines delivered his 4th child, a girl. Lu had already chosen her name, Lu Xiao. The household that had briefly slowed was growing again, and he now had 4 young lives whose futures he meant to prepare for. The name also exposed a new problem. If the children kept coming, inventing each name separately would become exhausting. Lu began considering a formal family naming sequence. He would need it soon. Another concubine was due in 2 months, and testing had revealed that she was carrying twins. In his study, Lu Changsheng guided the final stroke across his last sheet of talisman paper. A first-grade, middle-grade talisman took shape. His technique was more than sufficient, but at third-level Qi Refinement, the spiritual power and mental strain still left him exhausted. After recovering, Lu unlocked a nearby cabinet. Hundreds of talismans lay inside in orderly stacks, the harvest of almost half a year and 20 bundles of paper. Except for a few ambitious failures caused by insufficient spiritual power, his success rate had been virtually perfect. The sight made Lu sigh. Not one first-grade talisman could safely be sold. 5 basic cleansing talismans had already astonished the pavilion shopkeeper. Stronger goods might alert the Lu family's higher-ups. Selling elsewhere was no simple escape either. He needed family permission merely to leave Qingzhou Mountain. At the 100 Treasures Pavilion, Lu offered only basic talismans. He claimed confidence with the cleansing and garment purification talismans, admitted the dust avoidance talisman still troubled him, and lamented how costly the craft was. The hardship in his voice was an act. The limitation he displayed was deliberate. The shopkeeper assured him that he was already doing remarkably well. Anyone able to draw 3 basic talisman types counted as a talisman-making apprentice, and persistence should carry him to talisman master. He gathered the talismans, paid Lu 6 spirit stones, and warmly urged him to continue. Lu headed for the door without buying more paper. When the surprised shopkeeper asked why, Lu explained that his brush was worn out and a replacement would have to wait. That part was true. The wolf hair brush promised 200 uses but had barely functioned after 180, while Lu earned only 3 spirit stones monthly. Soon after Lu's departure, the shopkeeper's granddaughter Yue arrived with happier news. She had broken through to 3rd-level energy refinement. Her grandfather's face brightened at once. Delighted, he promised her any reward she wanted. Yue immediately asked for a flying sword. Her grandfather agreed without hesitation. 3rd-level energy refinement was enough to wield a magic artifact, and he had already prepared the sword for her. Yue followed him cheerfully to receive it. With her reward settled, Yue casually asked what the departing brat had wanted. Her grandfather explained that Lu practiced talisman making and sold basic talismans there. Yue scoffed. To her, he was merely a social climbing son-in-law, he made still less respectable by his reputation for continually taking wives and concubines. The shopkeeper's warmth vanished. He sternly reminded Yue what he had taught her. Lu might have married into the family from outside, but for the past year he had been diligent, practical, and fair to the Lu family. If her word spread, they would make the entire clan look petty and intolerant. More than diligence was at stake. The shopkeeper told Yue that Lu was extraordinary. He had real talisman talent, already qualified as an apprentice, and would likely become a talisman master if he persisted. He ordered her to treat Lu properly in the future. Yue remained skeptical, but her grandfather's judgment did not waver. The shopkeeper's faith in Lu Changsheng did not end with a lecture to his granddaughter. In a quiet Qingzhou villa courtyard, he surprised his old friend Uncle Fu by raising a serious proposal. Talent like Lu's belonged to the family now, and allowing it to go to waste would be foolish. The urgency was larger than one promising apprentice. Conflict with the Chen family had killed many younger Lu cultivators and left the elderly Lu family ancestor severely injured. He was their only Foundation establishment protector. If he died without a successor, the clan might lose its estates and even Qingzhou Mountain. Uncle Fu could no longer treat the matter as friendly praise. If Lu truly became a talisman master, he could strengthen the family's foundation. Uncle Fu rose and agreed to accompany the shopkeeper to Patriarch Lu Yuanding, placing the decision where the clan's resources and authority could actually move. Lu Yuanding's reading was colder than the shopkeeper's. Lu had worked diligently for a year, while other recruits still resisted having children. He had already impregnated 5 Lu women. To the Patriarch, Lu's peasant origin and eagerness for family life made him practical, uncomplicated, and easier to control. Lu Yuanding would consider formally accepting Lu as a family disciple, but not on reputation alone. He ordered Uncle Fu to bring his daughter Lu Miaoge to test Lu's talisman skill. Even if the talent proved real, Lu had joined only a year ago. Support would come with continued observation of his allegiance. That day, Lu Changsheng was cultivating at home when his wife Lu Lanshu brought unexpected news. Uncle Fu and the young mistress had arrived. Lu stopped at once and entered the hall. Uncle Fu sat waiting beside Lu Miaoge, Lu Yuanding's daughter and the expert chosen to judge him. Lu Miaoge appeared 18 or 19. Her jet black hair was tied simply, and a snow-white dress framed a slender curving figure seated with effortless elegance. Her beauty briefly caught Lu off guard, yet her dignified composure and Uncle Fu beside her made the social distance unmistakable, so Lu kept himself respectful. When Uncle Fu mentioned Agui's report, Lu understood immediately. The shopkeeper had brought his talent to the family's attention. Lu offered a careful truth. With only a 9th grade spiritual root, cultivation seemed hopeless, so he had chosen to learn a craft instead. He claimed only 3 basic talismans. Uncle Fu praised Lu's mindset and promised that genuine talent would earn support and cultivation from the family. Lu thanked them both. Then Lu Miaoge's clear, spring-like voice entered the conversation. Lu named every talisman he publicly knew: cleansing, garment purification, and dust avoidance, nothing beyond that carefully chosen boundary. Lu Miaoge selected 2 demonstrations: the garment purification talisman and the more difficult dust avoidance talisman. She stood, drew a complete tool set from her storage bag, and arranged brush, paper, ink, and materials across the table. The political promise had become a practical examination. Lu approached the table and caught the faint fragrance of Lu Miaoge beside him. Attraction was a distraction he could not afford, not with his future benefits and his hidden mastery both at stake. He suppressed the wandering thought, steadied the brush, and began the garment purification talisman under her watch. The garment purification demonstration showed that Lu's claim was not empty. Then came the harder dust avoidance talisman. Under Lu Miaoge's attentive gaze, the lines advanced toward completion, but the attempt failed. Lu had exposed enough skill to be judged, yet the expert's verdict remained suspended at the chapter's end. Lu Changsheng's dust avoidance talisman had failed, but Lu Miaoge did not condemn him. In her soft, calming voice, she said the attempt had already proved he could draw it. The suspended verdict became reassurance. His carefully limited display had passed an expert's scrutiny. Her correction was precise. The lines needed a lighter touch and placement to preserve their smoothness. Then a tuck turn at the end. Lu understood the purpose, but not the word. His ignorance was real enough that he asked, with convincing eagerness, what a tuck actually was. Lu Miaoge's brows drew together. Dot, place, touch, tuck, flick, slide, flash. Did he truly know none of the standard techniques? That list confirmed Lu's sudden realization. The refined young woman beside him was not merely observing for Uncle Fu. She was a talisman master herself. Lu answered with visible embarrassment. He had read only an introductory text and a comprehensive guide to basic talismans, then practiced alone. The claim protected his secret mastery, yet to Lu Miaoge it meant something astonishing. Without a teacher or formal technique, he had reached a level that made even her feel inferior. Lu Miaoge produced a book called Essentials of Talismans, a guide to the knowledge and techniques missing from his elementary reading. The offer carried more than practical value. It was recognition from a real talisman master, and a natural path for Lu to seek her guidance again. Lu could not deny his attraction to the ethereal young master of talismans, but rare beauty attracted admirers, and admirers attracted trouble. Seeking lessons merely to approach her would be reckless. He would keep his distance until he possessed enough strength. Then perhaps they could explore the path of talismans together. The moment the visitors were gone, Lu Lanshu, Lu Zier, Lu Qing'er, and the other women surrounded him with questions. Lu told his wives the truth about the assessment. Their delight was immediate. If his standing in the Lu family rose, the security and status of everyone in his household rose with it. Away from Lu's household, Uncle Fu asked the question that mattered. How good was Lu Changsheng's talent, and how soon could he become a true talisman master? Lu Miaoge pressed her lips together before answering softly. His talent was very high, higher, she admitted, than her own. The expert verdict quickly became material recognition. Lu's monthly benefits rose to 5 spirit stones and 30 catties of spirit rice. Uncle Fu also delivered a dedicated set of talisman-making tools. The family was no longer merely watching Lu's progress, it was investing resources to accelerate it. Lu's improved circumstances also brought spirit stones from other cultivators, and he kept them, gaining 10 in all. Li Feiyu was different. His friend still lived on only 2 spirit stones and 10 catties of spirit rice, so Lu could not accept Li's money in good conscience. Lu examined the package carefully. The common brush was a grade above his wolf hair brush, and should survive 300 to 500 uses. 10 stacks of talisman paper and 2 boxes of spirit ink completed the set. At market value, the supplies alone represented roughly 60 to 70 spirit stones. The size of the reward revealed the hand behind it. The 100 Treasures Pavilion shopkeeper must have convinced the family to take Lu seriously. Lu understood such social debts. He drew several basic talismans as gifts, carried them to the pavilion, and thanked the shopkeeper in person. 5 days later, the concubine who had been carrying twins went into labor. Lu had known 2 children were coming, and fatherhood had already made him steadier than during his first birth. He waited without his old panic. Then the news arrived. Both children had been delivered safely, and both were boys. With the twins, Lu Changsheng was now the father of 6. The birth itself no longer overwhelmed him, as it once had, but the sound inside his mind did. A system notification rang out at the exact moment the twins arrived, instantly replacing his practiced composure with sharp excitement. The message was explicit. For the first birth of twin offspring, the system granted 1 lottery draw. Lu seized on the wording. This was an achievement, like those in games from his former world. Special milestones could open rewards of their own, and he immediately called upon the system to use the draw. The draw Lu Changsheng had claimed for the birth of his twins answered at once. A crisp system chime congratulated him on acquiring the Immortal Beauty technique, and a crystal-clear jade scroll image formed in his mind. The reward was already waiting in system space. Immortal Beauty technique? The name made Lu's brow tighten. It sounded far less useful than the power or protection he had hoped a lottery might provide. Still, he stirred his mental spirit and opened the reward. Information surged forward, beginning with an earnest declaration that everyone possessed the right to pursue beauty. The entry named it a peripheral sect-level cultivation technique, designed to pursue unrivaled immortal beauty. Its promises were extensive. It could reshape bone beneath the skin, refine appearance and voice, heighten charm and charisma, and preserve youth indefinitely. Yet every benefit concerned presentation. Not one offered Lu direct strength in a fight. The creator was the ancient heavenly weeping elder, a cultivator of immense talent cursed with a repulsive visage. Strangers distrusted him before he spoke. Trouble drew suspicion toward him, people avoided him, and some attacked simply because they hated looking at him. His answer to that lifetime of contempt was this technique. The manual divided appearance into 7 degrees: revolting, ugly, odd, ordinary, outstanding, transcendent, and immortal beauty. The heavenly weeping elder had begun at the bottom, between revolting and ugly. Lu finally saw the technique's scale clearly, and why its creator had possessed the resolve to invent it. Lu could not truly share the elder's desperation. In either life he had never been exceptionally handsome, but neither had he been ugly enough to invite abuse. So his practical verdict remained unchanged. For a second lottery reward, a technique that only improved looks felt painfully trifling compared with something that could keep him alive. The instructions changed his calculation. The art had 2 simple methods of practice. One involved meditation and drawing spiritual energy through the body. Crucially, it demanded little effort and would not obstruct his true cultivation. If it had competed for his scarce time and energy, Lu would have abandoned it. Since it did not, refusing it gained him nothing. Nor did the art force every practitioner toward one identical standard. Beauty remained individual. Otherwise, a world of perfect clones would make the title meaningless. Lu accepted the logic with a private grin. Better looks, greater charm, eternal youth, and perhaps fairies approaching him first someday. Since the reward cost so little, wasting it would be absurd. More than a month passed. Recognition of Lu's talisman talent had already improved his standard of living, leaving him in excellent physical and mental condition. With a little additional effort, he also got one of the 2 remaining maids pregnant. The household milestone immediately suggested a larger opportunity. Lu expected Uncle Fu to send more women once both maids were pregnant, but expectation was slower than action. 2 lottery rewards had shown him how profitable family milestones could be. His talisman work was under control. Wives, concubines, and children were the foundation of his real path. So he went to Uncle Fu before being summoned. Uncle Fu heard the request and said nothing for a long moment. A year and a half had not erased the other immortal seedlings' resistance to marriage and childbearing. Lu alone had embraced the arrangement so thoroughly that he now volunteered for more. The older steward had prepared for reluctance, not enthusiasm. At last, Uncle Fu agreed. He did not merely give vague permission. He asked what kind of women Lu preferred and promised to send 2 later. Lu had approached with an audacious request and walked away with a concrete arrangement, proof that his growing value to the family had changed what he could ask for. Uncle Fu then fixed the boundary with these 2. Lu's recognized marriages would reach 9. There would be no 10th arrangement and no future request for another concubine. His talisman talent had earned him unusually favorable treatment, and 2 women connected to the Lu family, but the concession ended there. Lu accepted the terms, already looking toward the next stage of his quiet expansion. Half a year passed. In his practice room at Qingzhou Villa, Lu Changsheng's robe stirred without wind. He opened his eyes, expelled a breath of turbid air, and smiled. After a year and a half of cultivation, he had finally reached the 2nd level of Qi Refinement. The breakthrough had taken so long because cultivation was only one part of his life. Raising children and drawing talismans consumed much of his time. Even with 5 spirit stones each month and occasional spiritual tea or medicine, He had accepted slower progress in exchange for building something larger. During those 6 months, the 7th concubine and both women sent by Uncle Fu had joined Lu's household and become pregnant. Lu Lanshu, Lu Zier, and Lu Qing'er were also expecting their second children. Altogether, 6 more children were on the way, and Lu considered that growth worth the delay. Even Uncle Fu, who kept watch over Lu's circumstances, felt compelled to intervene. The older steward advised him to restrain his pleasures. There was no need, Uncle Fu stressed, to rush the matter of having children quite this aggressively. Lu had drawn more than 200 talismans in the same 6 months. 50 were basic talismans he could safely sell through the 100 Treasures Pavilion, using the proceeds to supplement his household expenses. His hidden mastery remained concealed, but his public craft was becoming genuinely profitable. To Uncle Fu, Lu claimed only 50 to 60% confidence in producing peace charms. He estimated that a few more months would make an attempt at a lower-grade first-grade talisman believable. Once he publicly succeeded, he could step beyond apprenticeship as an elementary talisman master and gain still greater value within the family. Lu wanted no competition or bloodshed, only a peaceful life of marriage, children, and cultivation. But expecting trouble never to find him was self-deception. For now, he decided there was no need to panic. As long as he stayed with the Lu family, its protection gave him time to prepare. Lu put the grim calculation aside and went to play with his children. He had barely lifted his eldest son when Li Feiyu arrived from next door. Smiling, Lu asked the little boy to call him Uncle Li. The child, only a little over a year old, answered with nothing but repeated babbling. Li congratulated him on reaching the 2nd level. He had sensed the fluctuation while practicing martial arts next door. Lu accepted the praise with a chuckle. Though the comparison was obvious, Li's 7th grade spiritual root and undistracted training had carried him to the same realm half a year earlier. Then Li narrowed his eyes and asked what Lu had been doing. Although they met only every month or 2, the difference was unmistakable. Lu's complexion had grown fairer, and he looked noticeably better overall. Lu paused, realizing the immortal beauty technique was already changing him little by little. Lu added offensive spell practice to his daily routine, beginning with the flame bullet technique. It was nothing like simply shouting the spell's name. He had to guide spiritual power while chanting a chain of ancient, obscure syllables, and coordinating the two felt painfully awkward. After an hour, Lu had nearly emptied his spiritual power without mastering the spell. He sat down to meditate and recover rather than force another attempt. From then on, spell training became another fixed part of his already crowded daily life. 1 month later, a red flame finally stabilized above Lu's fingertip. It began no larger than his thumb, but he kept feeding it spiritual power until it swelled to the size of an egg, and his hand trembled. He flicked his finger. The flame bullet struck the fine iron target and melted it into molten metal. The result explained why a martial Dao innate was only comparable to a cultivator near the 3rd level. Even superb martial skill could not save someone from a direct hit like that. Yet Lu remembered the Lu Chen clash on the road. Those cultivators cast faster and launched fireballs, water arrows, and wind blades in volleys. He had gained a weapon, not mastery. 2 months after Lu Changsheng melted fine iron with his first offensive spell, another turning point arrived at Qingzhu Villa. He stood outside a delivery room, tense and listening. Then an infant's cry pierced the door. His 7th child had entered the world. At that exact moment, Lu felt a profound connection. His own spiritual root throbbed in answer to the newborn. Before he could dismiss the sensation, the system spoke. This was his first child born with a spiritual root, and the birth had earned him 1 reward draw. Lu's earlier guess had been right. A spiritual root existed from birth, but remained unformed until it stabilized and became detectable around age 5 or 6. Because a child's talent was added to his own, the system let him feel Xianzhi's root the instant the boy was born. That blessing carried a cruel answer. If the system had never reacted before, then none of Lu's first 6 children possessed a spiritual root they could never cultivate. However long Lu himself lived, he might have to watch every one of them grow old and die. Lu could not erase the cruelty of the cultivation world. He could only treasure every child and give this gifted son a hope to carry. He chose the name Lu Xianzhi, a wish that the boy would step onto the immortal path and someday pursue longevity beside his father. Lu Lanshu, Lu Zier, and the other women repeated the name in surprise. Lu had always favored wishes for peace, joy, comfort, and tranquility. Why had this particular child received a name aimed so openly at immortality? Their curiosity warned him that the truth needed a safer explanation. Lu told them that he had successfully drawn a first-grade talisman and become an elementary talisman master. That achievement was his own first step on the cultivation path, he explained. So Xianzhi's name expressed a father's wish that his son might take the same step one day. The women brightened at once. A child had been safely born, and their husband had become an elementary talisman master on the same day. A true double blessing. They understood that his standing in the Lu family would rise, carrying every wife and concubine upward with him. Together they visited Lu Yuzhu, resting after the delivery, and gathered around her and the newborn. The good news belonged to the whole household. Xianzhi was safe, his mother was cared for, and Lu's publicly revealed advancement promised a stronger position for their family. When Lu finally had privacy, he turned to the reward hidden beneath the day's celebration. The system's pale red lottery wheel appeared, and he used the draw earned by Xianzhi's spiritual root. The result was not an ordinary talisman or another profession. It was a talisman treasure. Lu was ecstatic. Talisman treasures were refined from magical treasures, the weapons of nascent soul immortals, and were both priceless and vanishingly rare. Even in the hands of an ordinary Foundation establishment cultivator, one could possess overwhelming lethality. Until now, Lu had encountered them only in books. The record named it the Golden Light Brick Talisman Treasure. Immortal Golden Light had refined it from his own high-grade Golden Light Brick. When activated, it would manifest a golden brick to strike an enemy, carrying 20% of the original magical treasure's power. Its full power could be released only 3 times, and only by feeding it Foundation establishment mana. At the Qi Refinement realm, Lu could unleash merely a fraction with spiritual power. The restriction lowered the force available to him, but it also meant he would not consume the entire treasure at once. Lu estimated that each strike at his current realm might draw only 10 to 20% of the sealed charge. Perhaps that would give him roughly 10 uses. Every activation would still consume irreplaceable power, yet the conclusion remained exhilarating. His newborn son had brought him a rare high-rank trump card. The reward no longer remained a line of system information. With a thought, Lu Changsheng drew the Golden Light Brick Talisman treasure from system space, and a real talisman appeared in his palm, his newborn son's extraordinary gift made tangible at last. It felt smoother and more substantial than any ordinary talisman he drew. Across its surface, the image of a golden brick shimmered with twinkling light. The inscription seemed almost alive, quietly announcing that this was no common piece of paper. His hidden knowledge as a second-grade talisman master supplied the answer immediately. The treasure had been made from the fur of a high-ranked demon beast, a substrate far beyond the lower-grade spiritual material used in the talisman paper available to him. Qingzhou Mountain's abundant bamboo could supply ordinary lower-grade paper. Advanced talismans were different. Second rank work demanded first or second grade spiritual materials for both paper and ink. Skill became harder to improve just as every attempt became more expensive. A bottomless pit fed with money. Even with only a fraction of its sealed power available at Qi Refinement, the treasure was enough for Lu's present needs. Against anyone below Foundation establishment, he finally possessed a life-saving trump card, precisely because it was precious and finite. He carefully stored it without testing a strike. Next came a subtler question. How much had Lu Xianzhe's spiritual root improved his own? Lu lacked the specialized means to measure it directly, so he chose the simplest test. He would cultivate and compare how quickly his body drew in nature's spiritual energy. Hours passed while Lu measured sensation against memory. A better spiritual root should fuse more readily with spiritual energy, increase throughput, accelerate cultivation, and ease future bottlenecks. The flow around him was indeed faster than before, but only slightly. The increase was less than 10%. That was proof of improvement, but not of exceptional talent. Even allowing for Xianzhe's newborn spiritual root to stabilize until age 5 or 6, Lu judged it unlikely to become high grade. His private estimate was 8th grade, a lower grade spiritual root. Pulmatidan Aslau. Lu could hardly call that unfair. His wives and concubines were mortals. His own spiritual root was only 9th grade, and each child had merely a 1 to 2% chance of inheriting one. For the 7th child to possess any root at all was already remarkable luck. Nor was lower grade unusual. Children generally inherited roots close to their parents' quality, and 99% of people with spiritual roots belong to the lower grade. Expecting a middle or higher grade child from his present circumstances would have been wishful thinking. Lu drew a deep breath and stopped the spiral of speculation. He cared about his children, but cultivation itself defied the natural order. If uncertainty made him indecisive and emotionally trapped, he could obstruct his own path, or even nurture a heart demon. A practical possibility emerged. If the Lu family recognized him as an elementary talisman master, could he marry a woman who possessed a spiritual root? A live-in son-in-law could not normally reach above his status, certainly not toward a core woman like Lu Miyoge, but proven talent might open and narrow a door. Ideally, he would marry several women with spiritual roots. Their children would be far more likely to inherit roots, benefiting both his descendants and the system-assisted path that depended on them. Yet recognizing the ideal did not mean he should pursue it recklessly. For now, Lu was only at the 2nd level of Qi Refinement, relying publicly on 1st grade lower rank talisman skill. A spiritually gifted wife could hold too much power in the marriage and disrupt the harmony he already valued. Any request to the Lu family would also bring obligations. There was no need to hurry. Daylight had arrived. Lu set the larger ambitions aside and left the house to take the next achievable step. He would tell Uncle Fu that he could draw 1st grade lower rank talismans. Recognition had to come before he could learn how many doors his talent might open. Lu Changsheng reached Uncle Fu with the news he had chosen to reveal at daylight. He could now draw 1st grade talismans. He modestly claimed he was not proficient, then placed a fire bullet talisman on the table as proof. The rune lines were rough and uneven, exactly the work of a gifted beginner rather than the hidden 2nd grade master Lu truly was. Uncle Fu confirmed it as genuine, promised the family would not mistreat a new elementary talisman master, and hurried to report upward. One day passed. Lu waited in his own courtyard, playing with his children while the older ones ran about on newly steady legs. The lively domestic scene was the reason status and security mattered. Then the courtyard bell chimed. Outside stood Uncle Fu Lu family, Patriarch Lu Yuanding, and the young talisman master Lu Miyaoge. Lu instantly understood why they had come. A personal visit from the family head after only one day made the weight of his advancement unmistakable. Once everyone was settled in the main hall, Lu Yuanding came directly to the point. Lu repeated that sustained practice had finally produced a fire bullet talisman, but carefully limited his claimed success rate to only 1 or 2 attempts in 10. Lu Yuanding praised the speed of Lu's progress but still required direct proof. Lu Miaoge could judge the work and guide him. Before Lu could fetch his own equipment, her soft voice stopped him, and she produced a complete set of talisman-making tools. Lu spread the paper, drew a deep breath, and performed nervousness for his audience. Halfway through the first fire bullet talisman, his brush made a fatal mistake. Blue smoke curled from the paper, leaving the attempt ruined. No one rebuked him. Lu laid out fresh paper and tried again. His strokes still looked clumsy enough to fit the identity he had built, but this time the final rune held. The second fire bullet talisman was a success. Lu Miaoge observed that nerves remained, yet his progress since the previous demonstration was considerable. More importantly, the successful talisman settled the official question. Lu Changsheng's carefully limited public identity had advanced. The family could now recognize him as an elementary talisman master. Lu Yuanding declared that the family would not undervalue one of its own. From his sleeve, he produced a brownish-yellow sheepskin parchment and handed it across the table. It was a revised spiritual contract, an entirely new offer built around Lu's proven value. The first clause would void his old agreement. Lu would no longer be merely an upstart, live-in son-in-law brought in to produce descendants. He would be formally married into the Lu family as its recognized son-in-law. The old demand for 50 offspring within 20 years would disappear, along with any required number of children possessing spiritual roots. On the parchment, the children would be his own. The coercive core of the original marriage arrangement seemed to have been removed. The second group of terms went further. Lu would receive treatment equal to the family's direct descendants and could move his household into the core of Qingzhou Valley, where a second great spirit vein would make cultivation far more favorable. His monthly spirit stones would double from 5 to 10. Each month would also bring 1 bottle of yellow dragon elixir. For a cultivator still building his foundation, these were concrete gains, not ceremonial praise. The offer carried a clear price. Every month, Lu would refine a family-set quantity of talismans and practice whichever types the Lu family required. The family would provide the paper, ink, and other materials as its investment in his cultivation. The spiritual contract was refreshingly simple compared with the dense, trap-filled agreements Lu remembered from his previous life. Yet its plain language carried enormous consequences. Status, residence, resources, labor, and the legal shape of his family were all being rewritten. For the long road of cultivation, Lu could rely only on his system. That meant many children, especially children with spiritual roots. Mortal wives made such births rare, so his strategy eventually required spiritually gifted women, not merely the freedom granted by the old arrangement. Even if the Lu family offered him 1 or 2 spiritually gifted wives, it could never be as simple as marrying 9 mortal women. Lu's hesitation became impossible to hide. Lu Yuanding calmly sipped his spiritual tea and invited him to raise any doubts or omissions in the new contract. The decision still hung over the same hall. Lu Yuanding and Uncle Fu waited while Lu Changsheng studied the revised contract. He called its terms generous and said he had no objection, except for 2 questions he could not leave unanswered. First, Lu asked whether the children belonged to him or to the Lu family. Second, if he continued living under the family's protection, would he still be free to take wives and concubines? The questions were polite, but neither was casual. Lu did not believe the family head had invented these terms on the spot, nor that an invitation to speak made them equals. Elementary talisman master or not, he lacked the standing to bargain against an established cultivation family. He still intended to leave after surviving the dangerous early stage of cultivation, but raising departure now would change how the family judged and supported him. For a long while yet he needed their shelter, their resources and time to grow. The Lu family had nurtured him safely through his weakest years, so repayment was fair. Better still, they did not know his true advantage. With second-grade mastery and a perfect talisman success rate, family-supplied materials could earn enough to repay their investment threefold. Uncle Fu could only be thankful that the servants previously assigned to Lu were older women. His concern was not losing a few girls. He wanted this newly proven talent focused on talismans instead of desire. Lu Miaoge meanwhile remained serene and unreadable. Lu Yuanding laughed away the first concern. Under these terms, Lu would be a son-in-law of the Qingzhou Lu family, not merely an added member brought in to serve it. Naturally, every child would remain Lu's own. The second answer was equally plain. Taking wives or concubines remained Lu's freedom, and the Lu family would not interfere. They valued the person and talent before them. A few children and mortal women were trivial beside that value. Uncle Fu brought out Lu's original contract, and the old bond was dissolved. In its place, Lu signed the revised spiritual contract. The generous offer ceased to be a possibility. It became the active shape of his life within the family. Lu Yuanding gently patted Lu's shoulder and told him to regard the Lu family as his home. An identity plaque and residence in Qingzhou Valley would be prepared within days. Until then, he would remain here, but his improved welfare began this very month. The news struck Lu's fellow immortal seedlings hardest. They never expected to rival true Lu family disciples, but Lu had been rejected by Qingyun's sect just as they had. He was even a married-in son-in-law, yet now he had become an elementary talisman master. However bitter they felt, everyone understood the value of a talisman master not yet 20. The immortal seedlings came one after another with congratulations and gifts. Even proud Lu family disciples visited Lu's house, each hoping to establish a useful acquaintance. Li Feiyu was the first through the door, accompanied by his wife and carrying a box of spiritual tea. His congratulations were warm. Lu stepped forward smiling and protested that friends had no need to be so ceremonious. Li had reached the innate realm 6 months earlier, freeing him to begin a family. Now his wife was pregnant. With a 7th grade spiritual root, he had always cultivated far ahead of Lu. Yet Lu's talisman achievement had suddenly carried him past his gifted friend. Lu could see the disappointment beneath Li Feiyu's congratulations. He did not make a spectacle of it. Talent, effort, friendship, and comparison could exist in the same room, and needless words might only turn a natural sting into something worse. In the days that followed, Lu did not let his new status disrupt his rhythm. He cultivated calmly, spent time with his children, and waited for Uncle Fu to report that the identity plaque and Qingzhou Valley residents were ready. His wives were less restrained. Beaming, they visited sisters and close friends and made certain everyone knew their husband had become a talisman master. Women married to other immortal seedlings could only envy them and privately wonder why they had not married Lu instead. Lu saw exactly what his wives were doing and said nothing. They were people, not machines for producing children. They possessed pride, desires, friendships, and the right to enjoy a harmless victory of their own. Still, Lu could already see the future. Numerous wives and descendants would bring disputes, obligations, and trouble to the old ancestor at the center of them all. A family offered strength and reward, but it could also become a burden. That was cultivation. Every gain carried a loss. Lu had chosen the blessing of many children's system and the family path it demanded. He was prepared for both the resources and descendants that would lift him higher, and the responsibilities certain to follow. 7 days after Lu Changsheng signed his new agreement with the Lu family, Uncle Fu finally arrived. Qingzhou Valley was ready. Lu and his household could move into the family's core territory at once. Then Lu looked around. More than 2 years in this home had left cabinets, bundles, tools, and family possessions everywhere. Moving one man would have been simple. Moving 9 wives and concubines, 7 children, and everything they owned was another matter. Uncle Fu chuckled and produced a pitch-black leather pouch. The family head had sent Lu a storage bag, saying a talisman master ought to own one. Lu's eyes lit up. The cheapest bag at 100 Treasures Pavilion cost 50 spirit stones. Lu had wanted one for a long time, especially to conceal the many talismans he could not safely leave in cabinets. But spending 10 months of his former allowance had hurt too much. Now the family had given him one. A useful skill truly changed a man's value. Uncle Fu aimed the opening at an object sent in a strand of spiritual power and fixed his intent upon the target. The object vanished into the pouch. Reversing the process brought it back. The tiny leather bag held a space vastly larger than its appearance suggested. The convenience came with rules. Its inner space was only 1 cubic meter, and no living being could be placed inside. Most important, it recognized no owner. If stolen, everything in it was lost. Uncle Fu's third warning was blunt. Never flaunt wealth before other cultivators. Lu tested the method himself. Stacks of scattered talismans vanished from the study cabinets, followed by the other belongings he meant to keep. What had seemed like hours of hauling was finished in short order. Uncle Fu had solved the most troublesome part of the move. A carriage waited for the mostly pregnant women and the 7 children. Li Feiyu came to see them off. Lu promised that a little distance would not end his visits, and that Li could seek him whenever he needed help. 2 years, and a life-saving debt made them brothers. Lu climbed aboard, and Uncle Fu drove the household away from Qingzhou Villa toward the mountain's core. The old courtyard fell behind. Ahead, spiritual mist softened the landscape, and distant terraces appeared in ordered layers across the valley. These were no ordinary farms. The terraces cultivated spiritual grain, vegetables, and medicinal plants. Lu surveyed the unfamiliar scene and asked whether they had reached Qingzhou Valley. Uncle Fu confirmed it. This was the core region of Qingzhou Mountain. A second great spirit vein ran beneath Qingzhou Valley. Cultivation here would be far more effective than at the outer villa. Better still, long exposure would strengthen Lu's wives and children and lengthen their lives. The advancement he had earned would shelter his whole household. The carriage stopped before a manor. Uncle Fu pointed to it as though the matter were ordinary. This was Lu's residence. Lu stared. The estate covered 5 or 6 acres, many times the size of his old private courtyard. Conditions in the core naturally surpassed Qingzhou Villa. The manor was beautifully situated, protected by soundproofing, and supported by a spirit-gathering formation. As the women climbed down and saw it clearly, they stood with their mouths open. Secular life had never offered them anything this lavish. Inside stood grand buildings, pavilions, towers, winding corridors, rockeries, and ponds. Misty spiritual energy turned the grounds into a mortal fairyland, like a prince's mansion from Lu's former world. If a Qi Refinement cultivator lived this well, what magnificence awaited a nascent soul expert? For now, this astonishing manor was home. Once the household had settled into its magnificent new home, Changsheng unpacked what he needed from the pitch-black storage bag. Then he entered the manners practice room, sat amid the gathered spiritual energy, and began his first serious cultivation test in Qingzhou Valley. Several hours later, Lu opened his eyes in delight. The second-grade spirit vine was no empty privilege. Its energy was several times denser than Qingzhou Villa's, and his cultivation speed had risen by 30%. Even that improvement understated the vein's potential. The limit was Lu himself. He could not assimilate spiritual energy quickly enough to exploit all that density. Still, 30% was already an excellent gain, and the discovery filled him with fresh enthusiasm for cultivation. 4 days later, Lu family manager Lu Bo arrived at the manor. He brought a golden talisman brush and 100 complete sets of talisman materials. In return, Lu was to deliver 20 fireball talismans within 1 month, a concrete term of his revised contract. The Lu family supplied every material, while 20 fireball talismans posed no difficulty for Lu's hidden skill. For now, the assignment was practically pure profit. But he understood the subtext. The family still treated him as a trainee, and later quotas would rise in both quantity and quality. More than a month slipped by in Qingzhou Valley. Then Lu's household grew again. His 8th child was born. The baby was a daughter, adding one more small life to the family now established inside the mist-covered manor. Uncle Fu had mentioned that cultivators held a small trade fair at the waterside pavilion on the 1st of every month. Lu went to take a look. He did not need anything in particular. After years of living narrowly, simply broadening his horizons was reason enough. The offerings were few, scattered, and useless to him. One complete circuit left Lu thoroughly unimpressed. He had seen enough to satisfy his curiosity, so he turned toward the pavilion's exit, only for 2 approaching figures to change the value of the visit. One woman was the Lu family's young Miss Lu Miaoge. Today her verdant hair was bound behind her with a moon-white silk band, and her unadorned moon-white dress made her look simple, refined, and almost ethereal. The other woman was unfamiliar, yet unmistakably related to Miaoge. 18 or 19 and exceptionally beautiful, she shared most of Miaoge's features. Everything else differed. Elaborate makeup, lustrous black hair fixed with dark gold, glittering earrings, and a fitted dark dress embroidered in gold. High side slits exposed glimpses of Miao Huan's legs, but what truly surprised Lu was the layer covering them. Black silk stockings thin as cicada wings. Beauty was one thing. Finding such strikingly familiar fashion in this cultivation world made him look twice. Miaoge's words and the women's resemblance confirmed that the bold stranger was her sister, Lu Miaohuan. Lu was struck by how completely their temperaments diverged. Miaoge then asked whether he had come to buy something, her voice as soft as ever. Lu explained that Uncle Fu had told him about the fair, so he came merely to broaden his horizons. Miaoge gently pointed out the problem. The market would not fill until midday. He had arrived too early. That explained the scattered goods, but Lu had no reason to wait. Attraction was natural, but Lu had no intention of courting trouble. Lu Miaoge was not someone he could safely provoke, especially in public, where an admirer might notice their conversation and take offense. He bowed to both sisters and left without delay. The moment Lu was gone, Miao Huan delivered her verdict with open disdain. So that was the infamous Lu Changsheng, already married with 9 concubines, yet still looking at women. His attempt at caution had prevented open trouble, but it had not saved his reputation with her. Miao Huan gently suggested that Huan should also consider how she dressed. Miao Huan pouted at the implied criticism. Women might dress for those they fancied, she replied, but this outfit was for herself, not for a man, and certainly not for anyone else's approval. Walking away, Lu reached a less amusing conclusion. He still knew far too little about this world. He had spent 18 years in a village. Apart from the Qingyun sect examination, even the county town marked the limit of his travels. The fair had offered no treasure, but it exposed that ignorance. After the excitement of the trade fair, Lu Changsheng's world narrowed again to cultivation, talisman making, and spell practice. Another month slipped by in Qingzhou Valley. One concubine became pregnant with her second child, while elsewhere in the household a new cry announced his ninth. Lu checked for the familiar pulsation that would signal a spiritual root. Nothing answered. His ninth child had none. It was another disappointment, but before the household could settle fully around the birth, an unexpected message arrived. The sender was Hong Yi, one of the young companions who had traveled with Lu to the Qingyun sect examination. More than 2 years had passed since they separated. After a few greetings, Hong Yi asked whether Lu still remembered their 3-year promise. The promise had sounded casual then. Whether they entered an immortal sect or not, all 6 would meet 3 years later at Ruyi Tower, the largest restaurant in Ruyi Prefecture. Lu had dismissed it as a joke. Hong Yi had not. Xiao Shiyue, Xiao Qingqing, and Han Lin had already agreed to come. There were still about 6 months before the meeting, yet leaving the Lu family was no simple choice. The Chen family's ambush on his original journey had left a shadow in Lu's mind. The cultivation world was dangerous, and Qingzhou Valley was the first place that felt protected. Before settling the journey with Li Feiyu, Lu went to Qingzhou Villa to visit the 100 Treasures Pavilion shopkeeper. The old merchant's recommendation had helped Lu's talisman talent reach the Lu family's higher-ups. Lu had not forgotten that favor, or the value of maintaining goodwill. The shopkeeper was delighted by the visit. He had first helped because a talented, decent young talisman maker could serve the Lu family. But Lu's gratitude changed the balance. What began as useful patronage gained genuine affection, and the merchant judged Lu all the more commendable. Before leaving the pavilion, Lu bought herbs that strengthened the foundation and nourished vitality. They were meant for Li Feiyu's pregnant household. Lu received 10 spirit stones a month now. Li received only 2, but direct support would be refused. And worse, it could change the nature of their friendship. Li Feiyu was both surprised and delighted to see him. Predictably, he asked why a simple visit required gifts. Lu brushed the objection aside. They were hardly casual neighbors, and with Li's wife due in 2 months, bringing something to nourish her was perfectly natural. With the household courtesy settled, Lu brought out Hong Yi's letter. The old 6-person promise Ruyi Tower and the companions who had agreed to attend became a matter between the 2 friends. Rather than face the road alone, Lu and Li aligned their plans to go together. Life continued while the reunion remained ahead. Then Lu's 10th child was born, a daughter. He went to see her and found her utterly adorable, another small life joining the crowded household he had chosen to build. The system confirmed exactly what Lu had suspected. Reaching 10 progeny earned him 1 lottery chance. He brightened at once. The first meaningful number had been 1, and the second was 10. Achievements really did hide behind numerical thresholds. If 1 and 10 were milestones, what came next? 20 children? 50? 100? Lu let the possibilities rise, then stopped himself. The reward could wait a few moments. He first finished visiting his wives and children. Back in his study, Lu silently called for the system to draw a prize. The familiar pale red wheel appeared before him. This was his 4th attempt, and he did not waste the wish. He wanted a cultivation technique. His returning origin technique was common and elementary. Its virtue was safety. Cultivation remained steady, smooth, and almost risk-free. Its weakness was the very same steadiness. Spiritual energy entered him painfully slowly, a flaw that had become impossible to ignore on Qingzhou Valley's second-grade spiritual vein. Lu exhaled. Start the draw. Golden light raced around the pale red wheel. 1 second. 2. 5. Then the wheel began to slow. Lu watched with hope and nervous expectation as the selection approached, unaware that the system was about to answer his wish in a completely different way. The wheel completed its 4th draw. A small silhouette, black as an abyss and shaped somewhere between a wolf and a dog, emerged from the golden light. The system chimed. Lu Changsheng had obtained a 9 netherhound cub, already deposited safely inside the system space. A 9 netherhound, Lu paused, then his face lit with joy. It was not the cultivation technique he had wanted, but a good pet could grow beside its master. In battle or daily life, that kind of companion could become a tremendous advantage. He had never even heard the name 9 netherhound, so its rank was a mystery. Still, 3 previous draws had taught him something important. A system reward might occasionally be of little immediate use, but it was never trash. He sent his mental spirit into the system space. The appraisal appeared: spiritual pet, 9 netherhound rank, heaven grade, middle grade, description: an ancient fierce beast variant carrying a trace of the primordial true spirit, 9 netherhound bloodline. Given 500 years, it could reach its peak as a 4th-ranked demon beast. Lu drew a sharp breath. Heaven grade, middle grade was already astonishing, yet this cub also carried a trace of primordial true spirit blood. The promise beneath its tiny dark form was almost absurd. If it reached the end of its growth, it would become a 4th-rank beast. Demon beasts developed through 4 stages: infancy, growth, maturity, and peak. Bloodline determined how far that path could carry them. A heaven-grade beast could become 3rd rank at maturity and still hope for 4th rank at its peak. This cub possessed exactly that kind of future. 4th rank meant power equivalent to a human nascent soul cultivator. In Jiang country, that was not merely impressive, it was the ceiling of the entire cultivation realm. Lu's exhilaration surged as the scale of his new pet's potential finally became clear. The Heavenly Sword sect stood at the summit because a nascent soul true lord resided there. Beneath it were the Qingyun, Luoxia, and spirit-taming sects, followed by 8 other pinnacle powers. Foundation establishment clans like the Lu family of Qingzhou Mountain occupied a much lower tier. If the 9 netherhound truly reached 4th rank, Lu thought, he could walk sideways through Jiang country's cultivation world with impunity. For one intoxicating moment, the tiny cub looked like a guarantee of absolute security. Then his gaze returned to a single number in the appraisal: 500 years. 500 years was simply too long. Lu's present lifespan was only around a century. Without transforming his own cultivation, he would never live to see that magnificent peak. A reward capable of dominating Jiang country meant little if its owner became a handful of Earth centuries beforehand. Lu recalculated instead of surrendering to disappointment. Heaven-grade blood meant the netherhound should reach 3rd rank by maturity. More importantly, becoming a 2nd-rank beast in roughly 100 years ought to be feasible. That was still slow, but it placed real strength within a human-scale horizon. There was another possibility. Beast taming was one of cultivation's 100 arts, and it included husbandry methods designed to accelerate a spiritual beast's growth. Lu did not need to accept the netherhound's natural schedule if he could someday obtain the right nurturing technique. The spirit-taming sect, one of Jiang country's 3 great immortal sects, specialized in nurturing spiritual beasts. Every disciple tamed and controlled a pet. Lu filed that knowledge away. If an opportunity arose, its methods might be exactly what the netherhound needed. Ordinary beast tamers first had to domesticate and control dangerous demon beasts. Lu had no such problem. A pet awarded by the system required no domestication and was absolutely loyal to him. He only needed better ways to raise it. He never had to fear its power turning against him. For now, Lu would raise it normally. Taking it out was impossible. If anyone saw him conjure a demon beast cub from nowhere, he could never explain it. Better to leave it inside the system space until his coming secular journey. After returning, he could claim he had bought it outside. His explanation could be simple. The cub was something he had purchased to guard the house or accompany his children. With that cover prepared, Lu ended his inspection. The fourth lottery had not solved his slow cultivation, but it had placed an absolutely loyal future powerhouse in his hands. More than 3 months slipped past in Qingzhou Valley. Lu Changsheng's 11th child was born, then his 12th, then his 13th. Each arrival filled the household with fresh cries and celebration. Yet when the children were examined, not one of the 3 possessed a spiritual root. Lu no longer treated every failed test as a wound. A spiritual root could not be forced. The answer was persistence. As the number of descendants rose, so did the chance that another child could cultivate, and even when chance disappointed him, the multiple blessing system still rewarded a growing family. His household kept expanding. 2 more concubines became pregnant with their second children, leaving 3 babies on the way. In only 3 years, Lu had built a family of 3 wives, 6 concubines, and 13 children. Qingzhou Valley now knew him by 2 reputations: gifted talisman maker and tireless father. Lu Yuanding eventually came to speak with him. The patriarch's concern was direct. Lu had real talent in talisman making, and he should not bury it beneath pleasures of the flesh. Cultivation and the talisman path demanded discipline. If he continued indulging himself, he might squander his entire life. Lu nodded as though accepting every word. Then he explained that his spiritual root was poor and his ambitions modest. He was content with this life. He wanted descendants filling his home. If even a few possessed spiritual roots, he would pour his strength into nurturing them. Lu Yuanding could find no immediate answer. For children who could not cultivate, Lu already saw another road. Once they were older, he would send them into the secular world to travel, learn, and choose lives of their own. But freedom without strength was fragile. Mortal society had its own feuds and dangers, and he could not guard every descendant forever. That was where Li Feiyu could help. Lu intended to ask his friend to teach the children martial arts, strengthening their bodies and giving them a means of self-defense. Privately, he hoped their training might also feed strength back to him. In time, their branches could establish a secular martial Lu family. Before any of those distant plans could begin, Lu's own cultivation surged. Spiritual energy rolled through the practice room, making his Qingzhou vestment robe flutter in windless air. When the pressure finally settled, he opened his eyes in delight. 3rd level of Qi Refinement. He had broken through before the reunion. The difference was unmistakable. Reaching the 2nd level had taken 1 year and 4 months. The next step had taken only 10. Qingzhou Valley's 2nd grade spiritual vine had helped, as had the benefit tied to his 7th son, Lu Xianji. His poor talent still mattered, but it no longer defined his pace alone. His reflection showed another kind of progress. The immortal beauty technique had refined his appearance, but the change came from more than one art. His body had matured, comfortable living had restored him, and awakened memories had altered his bearing. Amused by how different he seemed, Lu chuckled and rose to prepare. Lu told his wife he was finally leaving for the secular world. The journey had already been discussed at home and approved by the Lu family. His flawless completion of 6 months of talisman assignments had earned their trust. They even offered an escort, but Lu declined. Safer perhaps, yet restrictive and inconvenient. The family did not press him. Instead, they gave him a transmission talisman and warned him to be careful. Lu had already packed his belongings into the pitch-black storage bag beneath his robe. With approval secured and a means to call for help, he left Qingzhou Valley's manor and headed for Qingzhou Villa. Li Feiyu opened the courtyard door with a 3-month-old daughter in his arms. Smiling, he admitted he had begun to wonder whether something had stopped Lu from coming. Lu explained that he had been on the edge of a breakthrough and delayed only long enough to finish it. Li's eyes widened. Lu had already reached the 3rd level. By his former pace, he should have needed far longer. Still, the first 3 levels yielded eventually to patient cultivation. The true wall waited between the 3rd and 4th levels, where Qi Refinement entered its middle stage and poor spiritual roots faced a genuine bottleneck. Li did not linger on that distant obstacle. He told Lu the next breakthrough should not defeat him, then asked whether they were leaving now. Lu was ready whenever he was. Li had prepared long ago. He passed his daughter to a recently acquired concubine in the backyard and stepped out beside his friend. Before the 2 friends could truly leave Qingzhou Mountain, they needed a way to cross the immense distance ahead. Uncle Fu supplied the answer. 2 rented spirit steeds like the mounts they had ridden here 3 years earlier, and a map of Jiang country. Chewed before them, the map revealed the scale of Jiang country. 9 provinces, each divided into prefectures, counties, and countless villages. Ruyi was a major prefecture of Qing province, and somewhere within its layered jurisdictions lay the small mountain village Lu once called home. With the route fixed, they mounted and rode away. Beyond Qingzhou Mountain, Li looked back on the astonishing change. 3 years ago, he had been a celebrated martial hero. Now he was a live-in son-in-law trying to find his place in the cultivation world. Lu shared the feeling. His memories had awakened during that examination, and the Lu family had become the unlikely beginning of a life he now considered satisfying. Riding beside Li, he wondered aloud how Hong Yi, Han Lin, Zhao Qingqing, and the others had fared. They measured the absent 4 by talent, background, and opportunity. Hong Yi had already stood at the 3rd level 3 years ago, while Han Lin and Zhao Qingqing had entered Qingyun sect. Surely, they reasoned, several of them must now be near the 3rd or 4th level. Lu understood what Li would not say. Beneath his casual manner, Li was deeply proud, a former young leader and martial prodigy who now seemed the least successful of their 6 companions. Worse, his agreement with the Lu family still demanded 48 more children. Lu told him not to surrender to that burden yet. In a few years, he would try to negotiate with the family head. His present standing as a first-grade, lower-grade talisman master carried too little authority, but revealing middle-grade mastery in another year should give his words real weight. Lu could welcome 50 children, or hundreds, because every descendant fed the hidden system that strengthened him. Li possessed no such blessing. For him, 50 children would consume cultivation time, and children claimed by the Lu family might cease to be his if he ever left. Having offered his own future influence, Lu asked a favor in return. His mortal family lived within Ruyi Prefecture, beyond the protection of cultivation society. He wanted no extravagant privilege for them, only the assurance that they could spend their lives secure, well-supplied, and wealthy. Li accepted without hesitation. Years away might have cost him the title of young leader, but the Crimson Whale Gang was still led by his father. In the secular world, ensuring one family enjoyed peace and wealth was a small matter within that reach. Lu then raised a second concern. With so many children, most could never possess spiritual roots. When those children were old enough, would Li teach them martial arts? Cultivation might be closed to them, but Lu did not intend to leave them without a path of their own. Li agreed, but added one warning: martial training was bitterly hard. He knew Lu as an indulgent father and doubted whether Lu would truly permit his children to suffer through it. The question was not whether Li could teach them, but whether the family could endure the price. Lu would force no child into that life. When the time came, each could choose. Yet affection did not mean raising them spoiled or frightened of every hardship. These first children would become the foundation of the family he intended to build, and he meant to give their growth serious effort. Lu Changsheng's breakthrough to the third level of Qi Refinement had brought strength, but it had also delayed departure. With the 3-year reunion appointment now in danger, he and Li Feiyu could afford no leisurely pace. They rode by day and through the night, covering the distance from Jingzhu Mountain in only 19 days. Fierce birds and beasts crossed their path more than once, but none became a true danger, and the road remained mercifully smooth. Night had already fallen when Ruyi County City appeared. Lu stared. The immense city sprawled across the darkness like a giant beast, yet its countless lamps burned so brightly that the streets and tightly packed buildings seemed caught in daylight. Before his memories awakened, Lu had been an ordinary farmer's son who had never traveled beyond modest counties. Ruyi's crowds, shops, and cloud-reaching structures made him feel like a country youth entering the grandest city imaginable. Even the mundane realm was wider than he had believed. After asking directions, they found Ruyi Tower. The prefecture's largest restaurant rose more than 10 jang above the street, marked by a hanging jade Ruyi engraved with its name. Even in this extravagant city, the reunion venue was impossible to mistake. Hong Yi was there to receive them. 3 years had changed all 3 young men, and Lu's transformation demanded a second look before the old names settled the moment. Whatever distance had existed between them before, Hong now greeted the travelers with practiced warmth. Hong refused to leave road-weary guests standing in idle conversation. He had already reserved rooms and a private booth to wash away the dust of their journey. Xiao Shiwei, Xiao Qingqing, and Han Lin had not arrived, he explained, but should appear within a couple of days. Gold and jade gleamed inside Ruyi Tower. Intricately carved rafters framed a central spiral staircase, which carried the 3 men to an elegant booth on the 9th floor. Beyond its windows, the brilliant night city stretched below them as Hong poured tea. Asked how the last 3 years had treated them, Li said only that things were all right, while Lu claimed he had merely managed. Hong accepted Li's reserve, but not Lu's modesty. Too much had changed in Lu's appearance and bearing for that answer to pass. Hong's years of dealing with people had sharpened his eye. He identified Lu's garment as a vestment robe, then joked that without their prior acquaintance, Lu's present looks and temperament could have passed for those of a cultivation family's noble scion. Lu was plainly withholding the better part of his story. Once Lu's elementary talisman mastery entered the conversation, Hong dismissed his own position as merely that of an extraneous son. Lu's progress, he said sincerely, was extraordinary. With such talent, second-grade talisman mastery might someday be within reach. The old hierarchy had quietly reversed. The praise felt good. 3 years earlier, Hong's manner had carried an unmistakable superiority toward companions like Lu and Han Lin. Now he was warm and courteous, and Lu suspected life had dealt him humbling setbacks. Still, Lu had no desire to answer old disdain with new arrogance. With Hong tirelessly guiding the conversation, reserve gradually gave way to familiarity. The 3 spoke more intimately until they resembled old friends reunited after years apart. Under Hong's enthusiastic hospitality, Lu and Li remained at Ruyi Tower for the next 3 days. On the 3rd day, wait ended. Xiao Xue, Xiao Qingqing, and Han Lin arrived in Ruyi. As soon as the news reached them, Hong brought Lu and Li downstairs, and the first 3 companions stepped forward to welcome the other 3. Xiao Xue stood out in a long white dress as pristine as snow, her oval face extraordinarily beautiful. She greeted Brother Feiyu and young Master Hu without hesitation. Then she looked at the changed young man beside them and asked in surprise, "Are you Lu Changsheng?" Inside Ruyi Tower's condensing immortal pavilion, the 6 former travel companions finally sat together again. Lu Changsheng, Li Feiyu, Hong Yi, Han Lin, Xiao Xue, and Zhao Qingqing had all left the secular world behind. 3 years on the cultivation path had changed every one of them. Hong Yi offered Xiao the seat of honor without hesitation. In the cultivation world, he said, strength reigned supreme, so the place naturally belonged to her. Xiao declined once for courtesy, then answered with an open smile. If the Marquis insisted, she would not keep pretending to refuse. 3 years ago, Hong's enthusiasm had carried the unmistakable edge of pursuit. That edge was gone. He knew he no longer matched Xiao, and forcing his longing into the open would only humiliate him and destroy what friendship remained. What he offered now was the hearty warmth of a friend. Han Lin broke the formality at once. "Changsheng bro, you've changed so much I almost didn't recognize you." He had heard that Lu and Li were serving as live-in sons-in-law in a cultivation family, and his teasing conclusion was simple. Judging by Lu's condition, life must have been good. Lu merely smiled and said, "Cultivation naturally changed a person inside." His answer was less modest. Talent? He had a system. Background? He had a system. Strength? Again, the system. Others possessed splendid beginnings, but if he kept working, his own future was no smaller. There was no reason to bow. The old rhythm returned quickly. Hong and Xiao kept finding subjects and drawing everyone in. Lu and Han answered when asked, then joined whenever something caught their interest. Li Feiyu and Zhao Qingqing remained quieter, speaking mostly when someone addressed them. Piece by piece, their 3 missing years came onto the table. Hong's report carried a sobering lesson. He had already reached the 3rd level 3 years ago, yet even a marquis's son could not obtain cultivation resources freely. Forced to earn them himself, he remained trapped at the peak of the 3rd level. Lu quietly revised his estimate of the next bottleneck upward. Xiao's path could hardly have been more different. Her 4th grade spiritual root drew an elder's favor as soon as she entered Qingyun's sect. She became an inner sect disciple immediately, and 3 years later she had crossed into the 4th level. The honored seat was not flattery, her strength had earned it. Han Lin and Zhao Qingqing had also entered Qingyun's sect, but ordinary spiritual roots placed them in the outer sect. They wore the same sect name as Xiao, yet their prospects were a world apart. Admission to an immortal sect was not a single victory. Talent still decided which doors opened afterward. Then Lu's own results reached the table. The live-in son-in-law they might have pitied had reached the 3rd level of energy refinement and become an elementary talisman master. Surprise moved around the pavilion. Even after hearing what Xiao had achieved, none of them had expected Lu's supposedly inferior path to carry him this far. Han added something even Lu had not known. After becoming an apprentice artifact refiner, he had encountered a senior brother from their old immortal sect examination and asked why Lu was not selected. The senior brother remembered Lu clearly. At that, Hong and the others turned toward Lu all over again. Lu had placed first in the 4th round test of conscience. On that performance alone, the senior brother believed he should have entered Qingyun's sect. 2 facts overruled it. Lu was older than the preferred candidates, and his spiritual root was only 9th grade. Exceptional resolve could not purchase the future the sect expected from talent. Li quietly called it a pity, and the others agreed. To them, even Lu's present success could not equal becoming an immortal sect disciple. Lu felt no such loss. Had Qingyun accepted him, he would have spent years accumulating before daring to marry and build a family. His present road might not be worse at all. Hong immediately declared that someone with Brother Lu's intelligence could shine anywhere. Food, drink, and conversation began moving again. Xiao had been expected to stand at the center of this reunion, yet Lu's unlikely progress now commanded its own share of attention. The rejected candidate no longer looked like the companion left behind. Several days after the reunion, a knock sounded at Lu Changsheng's room in Ruyi Tower. Hong Yi had found what Lu needed, a loose cultivator transaction fair at Bullhead Mountain 300 miles away, with only 5 or 6 days left to run. The market was not open to ordinary travelers. Hong produced a brownish-yellow communication talisman. Lu only had to reach Bullhead Mountain and activate it. Someone inside would open the concealing formation and guide him through. Lu thanked him by offering 3 lower-grade first-grade talismans of his own. Hong tried to refuse, but Lu pressed them into his hands. If Hong insisted on formality now, Lu said, how could he comfortably ask for help again? The communication talisman itself was not expensive, but gathering the information had taken effort. Lu would not let Hong lose by helping him. A well-connected friend in the secular world might also matter when Lu's growing number of children eventually sought lives beyond the cultivation family. Hong offered the use of his Ruyi prefecture contacts and cautioned Lu to be careful. Yet he saw opportunity too. Lu might become a superior grade first-grade talisman master, perhaps even second grade, and a stable talisman connection could strengthen Hong inside the Marquis mansion. Lu offered Hong 10 more lower-grade talismans, but called his supply modest. The truth remained inside his storage bag, roughly 1,000 talismans, half lower grade and half middle grade, worth perhaps 2,000 to 3,000 spirit stones. Lu had no intention of displaying that fortune. A small, loose cultivator fair could not absorb nearly 1,000 talismans, and trying would invite danger. He would sell only a controlled portion. Hong, meanwhile, insisted he should at least pay the market price. In the end, Hong took the talismans without spending money. That was valuable in another way. Carrying Lu's work home would help convince his father that his friendship with the talisman master was real. Lu accepted the risk that such generosity might reveal Hong's true character. Lu then entrusted his familiar steed to Hong. He had no beast storage bag and did not know whether a mount could enter Bullhead Mountain, so risking an animal he valued made no sense. Hong clasped his hands and promised to care for it. For the actual trip, Lu obtained another horse. If Bullhead Mountain forced him to abandon it, the loss would not hurt. Cultivation had not erased his old riding experience. He mounted easily and set out from Ruyi County City toward Nanyu Prefecture. By the next day, the air had turned slightly cool. Lu reached Bullhead Mountain, found a farmhouse at its foot, and left the substitute horse there. From this point onward, he would approach alone and give strangers as little information as possible. Once no one was nearby, Lu took a human skin mask from his storage bag and fitted it over his face. His improved, handsome features vanished. In their place appeared a dull-looking, yellow-skinned young man whom no acquaintance should recognize. Lu added a large black cloak and drew up its hood. Now even the masked face and the shape of his body were difficult to discern. Only after completing both layers of concealment did he continue toward Bullhead Mountain's northern slope. At the mist-shrouded northern slope, Lu brought out Hong's brownish-yellow communication talisman and sent its signal into the formation. The concealed entrance answered, A narrow route opened through the white mist, inviting the anonymous talisman master into the loose cultivator fair. Lu Changsheng followed the narrow path into what looked like endless mist. After roughly 100 meters, he passed through an invisible boundary like breaking a lake's surface. The blank white world vanished, and a secluded valley opened before him. The valley covered only 30 to 40 acres, yet ancient pavilions ringed a crowded central market. Vendors called out pills, herbs, artifacts, and spiritual goods. With its orderly stalls and jostling customers, it reminded Lu of a countryside market day from his previous life. Lu sensed a spirit vein beneath the valley, but its energy was weaker than Qingzhou villas and probably ungraded. The modest surroundings did not make the fair harmless. Surrounded by unknown cultivators, he reaffirmed his safest plan: sell only a small, unremarkable portion of his stock. Lu claimed an empty spot, spread out a thick stack of basic first-grade talismans, and raised a board. 1 or 2 spirit stones each. Buy 5 and receive 1 free. He left every middle-grade talisman inside his storage bag. Better to sacrifice a little profit than advertise dangerous wealth. A cultivator soon asked whether the free talisman could be chosen freely. Lu lowered his voice to a hoarse rasp. Buy 5 2-stone talismans, and any free one was allowed. Otherwise, the gift must come from the 1-stone selection. The customer accepted, chose 6 premium pieces, and paid 10 stones. That first exchange broke the hesitation. Cultivators gathered, drawn by a useful product, an attractive offer, and line work whose quality was obvious even to non-experts. In just over an hour, Lu's displayed batch of nearly 100 talismans disappeared. His carefully limited sale had earned exactly 133 spirit stones. Lu turned buyer and found advanced talisman paper and spirit ink. They cost about 5 times as much as ordinary materials, a poor margin for anyone making only middle-grade, first-grade talismans. But Lu could secretly produce superior ones. In his hands, the expensive materials were an opportunity. After bargaining, Lu paid 66 spirit stones for the shop's entire available supply, 12 stacks of advanced talisman paper and 3 boxes of spirit ink. He searched onward, but supreme-grade paper and ink were beyond what a small, loose cultivator gathering like this could offer. A bookstall caught Lu's attention next. Cultivation records, travelogues, and personal notes promised glimpses of a world he still knew too little about. The price made the choice easy. He paid 1 spirit stone and added all 10 books to his storage bag. Lu then worked through several stalls and shops, collecting the 5 elements resources required by the immortal beauty technique. Each was a first-grade, middle-grade material. When the final piece entered his bag, the set was complete. It cost 59 spirit stones, consuming almost everything he had just earned. One need remained. Lu's gold-tipped talisman brush was excellent by ordinary standards and could draw first-grade superior talismans, but it was not a magic artifact. He searched the fair for a true upgrade. Stall after stall disappointed him, and at last he had to abandon the hunt. The thought of Li Feiyu and the Crimson Whale Gang brought Lu's shopping to an end. He left the hidden valley with his purchases secured, brought out a featherweight talisman, and descended Bullhead Mountain at a swift, light-footed pace. His mask and black cloak stayed on. Caution still came before comfort. Lu Changsheng was already halfway down Bullhead Mountain. A featherweight talisman kept his steps swift and light, while the human skin mask and large black hooded cloak still hid the young cultivator who had just left the fair. Then movement sounded behind him. Lu looked back and saw 3 conical-hatted figures racing down like the wind. His heart pounded. The burly one wore yellow, and Lu vaguely remembered selling to him. He was now 60 to 70% certain they had marked him. He did not waste a breath. Lu activated a middle-grade, first-grade wind-walking talisman. Dark green wind coiled around him, and he shot downhill like a gust. The acceleration cracked his cloak through the air, tore back his hood, and made even his masked face sting. The display only excited them. "A middle-grade talisman," one robber exclaimed. Another called Lua, fat sheep who had brought too many talismans to sell. Their own speed rose again. The taunts confirmed everything. Caution had reduced his exposure, but it had not hidden his value. Lu could not outrun them. Worse, each robber stood at the 6th or 7th level of Qi Refinement, while he was only at the 3rd. A normal exchange would be hopeless. So he gathered a thick handful of talismans and waited for all three to enter his range. Lu activated every talisman in his hand at once. Golden light, water screens, and twisting vines wrapped around him. Most of the stack became fireballs, water orbs, arm-thick arrows, and razor crescents, all screaming toward the robbers in one violent storm. The trio had survived by experience, and now that experience showed. The short, thin robber snapped out several talismans, yellow light flickering through rapid hand signs at his cry of earth wall technique. Thick barriers erupted from the trail, then began exploding apart under Lu's concentrated barrage. Before the last wall vanished, the tall, thin robber threw out a black shield. It expanded, spun in midair, and cast off a dark, mysterious glow as it absorbed the storm. Beside him, the burly man in yellow released a flying dagger. Defense had become counterattack. Lu's ordinary talismans had bought him a chance, not a victory against three stronger cultivators and their artifacts. He finally opened his deepest hand. Spiritual power poured into the golden light brick talisman treasure, and golden radiance swelled above the mountain path. The reversal was absolute. One robber begged the fellow Taoist to spare his life, admitting he had been blind. Another suddenly discovered an 80-year-old mother and a 3-year-old child waiting at home. A moment ago, Lu had been prey. Now all three could only plead beneath the golden pressure. Even while begging, the robbers could not comprehend it. A 3rd-level cultivator had brought a talisman treasure to a tiny trade gathering, then run from them. Why not show it first? They would have fled and apologized. Using such a treasure on petty thieves felt offensively wasteful. Did they even deserve it? The golden brick, massive as a small mountain, came down on all three. Bang! The impact thundered across the slope, and Bullhead Mountain itself seemed to shake. In that single deafening instant, the hunters vanished beneath Lu Changsheng's hidden trump card. Dust rolled away from the place where the mountain-sized golden light brick had landed. There had been no scream. The robbers' layered defensive spells and spinning black shield had crumbled at impact, as though none of them had ever existed. Lu Changsheng did not relax at once. His heart hammered as he stared into the ruin and waited for a counterattack. Only after confirming that all three were unquestionably dead did the tension leave him. He bent forward, gasping for breath. Nearly 20 ordinary talismans had taxed his mental spirit, but the golden light brick had taken most of his spiritual power. At Lu's thought, its vast radiance contracted. The small mountain manifestation folded back into a talisman-like form and flew into his hand. Only then could Lu take in the result. The brick had excavated a pit dozens of feet wide and deep. The three men were unrecognizable, and their black shield was a deformed lump of iron. Even Lu whispered that the treasure's power was terrifying. More frightening still, Lu had produced this with only 3rd-level Qi Refinement, and could activate merely part of the treasure. What would happen when a late-stage Qi refiner or a Foundation establishment cultivator released its full strength? The thought left him awed and painfully aware of his own weakness. Lu withdrew to a grove before letting himself think. Ordinary lower and middle-grade talismans could never have killed those three. He had disguised himself, hidden his wealth, and fled rather than fight. Yet he had still been hunted. The cultivation world truly followed the law of the jungle. The answer, Lu decided, was not solitary bravado. A family or sect demanded contributions, but it also stood between a weak newcomer and the worst storms. Living under the Lu family's roof meant relying on others. After this ambush, that protection looked less like humiliation and more like survival. Lu tried to recover through meditation, but the mundane world's spiritual energy was painfully thin. At that rate, he could not tell when his reserves would return. With the journey still unfinished and danger fresh in his mind, waiting indefinitely was not an option. He took out a translucent spirit stone and drew its energy into himself. Later, the stone had turned noticeably dull. Spirit stones were currency, and consuming one directly was extravagant. Most cultivators preferred spirit rice, tea, or wine. Today, however, speed and safety justified the cost. Once recovered, Lu sorted the 3 robbers' possessions instead of rushing onward. The collection included 3 storage bags and several miscellaneous valuables. He checked each item carefully, turning the aftermath of an unwanted battle into resources he could actually use. The 3 storage bags themselves were worth about 150 spirit stones. Once Lu included everything else, the total approached 500. After the terror of the ambush, that number changed his mood immediately. He smacked his lips, unable to deny how profitable the victory had been. The contrast was almost absurd. Lu had once received only 2 spirit stones a month as a live-in son-in-law, then barely 10 as a talisman master. Even today's 100 talismans had earned only a little over 100 after costs. Murder and looting really was faster, and that was precisely why it tempted people. Lu rejected the idea almost as soon as he considered it. Senseless killing violated his principles, and hunting stronger cultivators for treasure was far too dangerous for his temperament. Besides, he possessed a safer advantage with the system behind him. Marrying, taking concubines, and having children was his righteous path to power. One recovered item deserved a closer look: a foot-long flying sword. The Lu family had once rewarded Lu with a sword for being first to father a child, but he had sold it before ever trying it, using the money to support talisman making. Now at last another sword rested in his hand. Reaching 3rd level Qi Refinement had unlocked the object manipulating technique, allowing a cultivator to wield magic artifacts. Lu finally attempted it with the recovered sword. Yet his spiritual power was still limited after the battle, so he stopped there and left the other artifacts untested. Lu mounted his horse and turned toward the Crimson Whale gang. He would meet Li Feiyu, arrange dependable protection for his parents and family, then return to Qingzhou Mountain early. The outside world was too dangerous. Hunkering down with the Lu family, growing stronger, and having more children was the better road. Heavenly Water Mansions stood on the Dajing River, where Ruyi Prefecture's waterways met the Hui Canal of Qing Province. The Crimson Whale Gang had grown rich and powerful, carrying goods across that network. It was famous throughout Jianghu, backed by official connections, and capable of reaching far beyond one city. Lu Changsheng arrived at the city in a green robe, his refined features and tall, slender figure carrying an easy confidence. He led his tall horse with one hand. In the other arm rested the 9 Netherhound, a small, dark-furred cub with a scarlet vertical mark upon its brow. Several robust men in short red tunics immediately approached. 3 stepped forward and respectfully asked whether he was Master Lu. Their young master, Li Feiyu, had ordered them to wait at the gate. Lu recognized the gang embroidery, confirmed Li's name, and accepted the reception without hesitation. A luxurious carriage rolled forward. Lu handed over his horse's reins and climbed inside without relinquishing the 9 Netherhound. The coachman warned that the main hall lay half an hour away. Then the carriage moved off at a gentle, steady pace, carrying the honored guest through Heavenly Water Mansion. Li Feiyu received Lu beside an imposing middle-aged man. He introduced the man as his father Li Shenyang, leader of the Crimson Whale Gang, who had come out personally after hearing of Lu's arrival. Li then presented Lu as his good friend, giving the meeting both familial warmth and formal weight. Li Shenyang had fully supported his son's decision to become a cultivation-family son-in-law. To a Jianggu martial artist, becoming a cultivator meant rising above ordinary men. A true man could stoop when necessary and stand tall when opportunity came. Even the lowest cultivator possessed extraordinary secular status. Lu clasped his hands and greeted him as Uncle Li. Then he produced 5 bottles of medicine, apologizing that he had prepared no proper gift, and calling them a small token. Li Shenyang said a guest need not bring gifts, but accepted them, and courteously led Lu toward the banquet already waiting inside. Li Feiyu finally asked where Lu had obtained the demon beast. Lu explained that he had encountered it at a loose cultivator gathering. Li examined the quiet cub, but its true nature escaped him. He could tell only that it was canine, with no way to determine its species or rank. The group entered the Crimson Whale Gang's headquarters, where a banquet had already been prepared. After eating, Lu retired to rest. The journey from Bullhead Mountain had left him genuinely weary. 3rd level Qi Refinement granted him far more energy than a mortal, but that energy still had limits. Once the banquet ended, Li Shenyang remembered Lu's 5 bottles. He opened them, carefully poured out the medicines, examined their color and form, and tested their scent. His practiced eyes widened. As a gang leader who dominated an entire mansion, he knew exactly what he was looking at. The first was marrow cleansing elixir, able to cleanse the marrow and improve martial aptitude. The second was innate elixir, increasing the chance of an innate breakthrough. Then came great restoration elixir for internal or external injuries, and essence nurturing elixir, capable of adding several decades of strength. The 5th was 5 spirit detoxification elixir, said to neutralize thousands of fierce poisons. Li Shenyang stared at the complete set in disbelief. Every bottle was a saintly medicine of Jianghu, coveted by countless martial artists. Any one of them could inspire men to risk their lives, yet Lu had offered all 5 casually. The medicines tempted even Li Shenyang, but accepting them did not sit comfortably with him. They had been given because of his son's friendship, meaning that friendship would someday bear the burden of repayment. He put the bottles away, handed them to Li Feiyu, and ordered him to return them later. Li Feiyu knew Lu would never take the gift back. He told his father to accept it in peace. If keeping it still felt wrong, the gang could repay Lu by compensating his parents and family. The suggestion carried Li's own embarrassment. At the Lu family, he lived frugally on only 2 spirit stones a month. Li Shenyang answered in a deep, resolute voice. As long as the Crimson Whale Gang existed, Lu Changsheng's parents and family would enjoy wealth, safety, and freedom from worry. Even if the gang itself ceased to exist, they would still do everything possible to protect them. Lu's journey had achieved its purpose. 2 days after the Crimson Whale Gang pledged to protect his family, Lu Changsheng set out to see them himself. Li Feiyu rode with him, accompanied by 2 gang men who would help settle the household. Their route led through Lu's hometown and Ruyi Prefecture, then back to Qingzhou Mountain. The closer Lu came, the less calm he felt. How much had his parents changed during his 3 missing years? Awakening another life's memories had not erased the 18 years he had spent as their son. This village was still home, and the thought of seeing it again made him both sentimental and afraid. 6 days later, the carriage jolted along a dirt road to a small mountain settlement. The stone pier at its entrance bore 3 familiar characters: Warniu Village. Lu stopped the carriage outside. Recognizing every line of the landscape, he left the others behind and hurried into the village alone. The village entrance seemed deserted, but gongs, drums, and trumpets sounded in the distance. Lu followed the music and quickened his pace. His childhood home appeared ahead, its hedge-fenced courtyards crowded with tables and villagers. Huge wedding characters covered the walls. Of all days, he had returned for Changsheng's wedding. A woman carrying a child finally recognized the refined young man at the entrance as her missing brother. She reached to pull Changsheng inside, then saw his fine clothes and stopped, afraid her hand might soil them. That small hesitation exposed the distance 3 years had created. Then she rushed into the courtyard, shouting for their parents. The courtyard erupted in whispers. The Lu family's third son had vanished 3 years ago, yet this clear-skinned, refined young man looked finer than a city heir. Then 2 gray-haired figures emerged in neat wedding clothes. Lu had expected change, but not this much age. His lips trembled. Dad. Mom Lu's return became the greatest sensation Wanyu village had seen in years. Changqing's wedding swelled into a feast of more than 100 tables, and the celebration continued for half a month. Lu did not merely arrive in fine clothes. He made sure his younger brother's happy day became impossible for the village to forget. The feast was only the beginning. Lu built large houses for his parents and siblings and bought land for them. His family would not have to depend upon a single celebration or a purse of temporary silver. Old Man Lu's household rose from common poverty into local prosperity, and the village began addressing him with new respect. When Lu and Li collected their spirit horses in Ruyi Prefecture, Hong Yi greeted them with unusual warmth. At their farewell, Lu and Li returned his salute and mounted up. Once they had ridden some distance, Li remarked that the Marquis's son had plainly become much friendlier toward Lu. A few days earlier, Hong had placed Lu's 13 talismans before his father and explained that his friend was now a talisman master. Because Hong had received them before paying a single spirit stone, the Marquis believed him. He praised Hong, ordered him to nurture the friendship, and finally entrusted the concubine-born son with mansion responsibilities. Hong had also brought 15 spirit stones as payment for those talismans. Then he made his real request. If Lu ever sold talismans beyond the Lu family, would he give Hong priority? Lu agreed. The bargain benefited them both. Hong gained leverage in his father's house, while Lu gained a powerful, motivated intermediary. Back on the road, Lu explained that Hong's life as a concubine-born son had never been easy. Friendship with a talisman master could improve his standing, yet Lu needed the connection too. He held many talismans but lacked the strength to sell them safely. Letting Hong serve as a channel could spare him considerable trouble. Half a month into the ride toward Qingzhou Mountain, thunder cracked over the parched land. Lu Changsheng looked from the darkening sky to an abandoned temple ahead. Night was closing in, and the coming rain left him and Li Feiyu little choice but to seek shelter. The temple was worse up close. Weeds choked the ruins, while dust and spider webs filled the interior. Lu used a cleansing technique to clear a livable corner. Then he gathered firewood and built a campfire as the storm swallowed the road outside. Lu drew raw meat from his storage bag for the 9 netherhound. Li watched the little beast devour it and marveled at its stomach. The pup already needed 5 or 6 pounds in a single meal, an absurd appetite packed into such a small, abyss-dark body. Ordinary meat was affordable, even in ridiculous quantities. Faster growth was the real problem. Lu suspected the hound needed demon beast meat, and the Lu family's cheapest supply cost 1 spirit stone for only 5 or 6 pounds. Raising this cub all the way to 4th rank would consume a fortune. The shelter did not remain private. An elderly man entered from the rain with a young woman and courteously thanked the travelers for sharing the space. Yet one detail was immediately wrong. The girl's pink skirt was soaked through, while the old man's clothing was barely wet. Lu kept his face neutral and used sound transmission. The old man had to be an innate master. Only exceptional martial control could keep the rain from touching him. Li confirmed it with an old saying, "At that level neither a feather nor an insect could settle upon the body." Li's next conclusion was more disturbing. These two were not grandfather and granddaughter. There was no familial warmth between them. An innate master had left the girl untrained and drenched. Most tellingly, her speaking acupoint was sealed, and when she saw Lu and Li, hope flashed in her eyes. Lu immediately became more cautious. When the elder moved toward their fire, Lu quietly took talismans in hand, ready to strike at the first unusual movement. Li openly invited the man closer, but sent Lu a private message beneath the courtesy. "Leave this to me." The elder offered them dry food. Before either man accepted, the sleeping 9 netherhounds snapped awake and growled at him. Lu calmed the cub without changing expression. Li merely smiled and said they had already eaten. The elder then bent toward the fire, asking only for a burning stick. Li's smile turned mocking. If that fire was insufficient, he offered to add more. Before the sentence ended, his robe snapped and a fierce palm drove toward the elder. The old man raised a prepared counter, but a thumb-sized flame bloomed in Li's palm at the instant their hands met. The elder screamed as his hand erupted in flame. It raced up his arm and across his body faster than anyone could intervene. Within moments, the formidable innate master was gone, reduced to ashes beside the campfire, while Lu, the silenced girl, and even the hound faced the shocking aftermath. The elder was already a heap of ash, but Lu Changsheng was still reconstructing the impossible strike. Li Feiyu had compressed a flame bullet into his palm, then driven it forward with innate martial force. The heat consumed the man before the palm's full power even erupted. Li showed no burden from the killing. The old fellow had invited his own death, he said. Still, combining the spell with martial arts had worked rather well. His almost casual satisfaction made the contrast sharper. Lu had witnessed a revelation, while Li treated it like a successful experiment. Then Li explained why he had struck first. The elder had not merely looked suspicious. He had come prepared to poison them. The dry food was probably tainted, and a narcotic had been hidden inside his sleeve for the moment he bent down beside their fire. Lu had assumed Li merely sensed hostility. Hearing the details left him incredulous. Li admitted the elder had hidden his preparations cautiously, but executed them poorly. Poisons and such covert tricks had surrounded Li since childhood. Against that experience, the old man's performance had never stood a chance. Lu revised his understanding of danger. The cultivation world was treacherous, but the secular martial world was no safer. A friendly offering, a lowered sleeve, one breath beside a fire. Ordinary gestures could conceal methods just as difficult to guard against as any spell. The young woman in the pink skirt finally recovered from the killing. She hurried forward and knelt, her lips moving without sound. Still wary, Lu asked whether she posed any danger. Li checked her, chuckled at Lu's caution, and confirmed that she was merely an ordinary person the elder had kidnapped. Li flicked his fingers. Several threads of qi struck the girl's sealed points, and a muffled sound escaped her. The first proof that her voice had returned. Excitement crossed her face, but words never came. Everything she had suppressed instead broke loose as a thin wail that swelled into helpless sobbing. Lu and Li exchanged a silent look. Li then became intensely interested in a ruined beam overhead, plainly leaving the human aftermath to his friend. Lu waited until the sobs softened and spoke as gently as he could. It was all right now. The danger had passed. Once she could answer, the captive was no longer nameless. She was Zhen. Her account confirmed that the elder was her kidnapper, not her grandfather or protector. and that his interest in an ordinary young woman was connected to a cultivator who wanted her as a concubine. Lu activated the spiritual eye technique. Crystalline light shimmered in his eyes, and a faint spiritual halo appeared around Changsheng. She truly possessed a spiritual root. His beginner-level technique could confirm its existence but not determine its grade. Li was surprised as well. They had rescued her almost by accident, yet Qi carried the one qualification needed to enter cultivation. At last the elder's behavior made sense. An innate martial master had guarded and restrained her because a young woman with a spiritual root had value to cultivators. Lus studied her tear-streaked face and asked what she intended to do next. Qi could only answer that she did not know. When he put the truth plainly, she was homeless, without family beside her, or any destination. She nodded, lost, and began crying again. Lu saw the opportunity without pretending otherwise. Changsheng was beautiful, of marriageable age, possessed a spiritual root, and needed a home. He wanted wives with spiritual roots and children who might inherit them. So he acted, offering her a warm home, but not coercion. Would she marry him and return with him for life? Lu wanted Changsheng, and he wanted the spiritual root she might pass to his children. Yet Li would not ruin his good brother's chance. He knew Lu's ambition was not glory, but stability. Wives, concubines, and a house full of children, preferably children able to cultivate. Was attractive, homeless, and possessed a spiritual root. In Li's eyes, the match was bluntly calculated, but reasonable. The opportunity was rarer than it looked. A talisman master might meet female cultivators, but pregnancy and childbirth could hinder their cultivation. So many would accept a partner yet avoid children. Qi's spiritual root raised the odds that Lu's descendants might inherit one, and she had nowhere else to settle. Could only stare. Through tear-wet eyes, she took in Lu's clear, handsome face and tall, lean frame. Then her fair, slightly chubby cheeks turned scarlet. His proposal was so direct that she could not immediately find an answer, while the rain continued roaring beyond the broken walls. Lu gently explained what she had never known. He and Li were cultivators, the immortals spoken of by ordinary people. Anyone born with a spiritual root could begin cultivation. That was why the elder had taken her. He meant to deliver her as a concubine to another cultivator. The revelation struck Qin the cruelest way. If the elder wanted her because of the spiritual root, then she believed she had caused her parents suffering. Tears broke free again. Lu had given her an explanation, but for the moment it only transformed confusion into guilt. When her sobs finally eased, Qi lifted her red, tear-streaked eyes. She said she could never repay such great kindness, then offered the only future she felt she possessed. She would give herself in marriage to her benefactor. Li watched in silence, privately convinced that Lu had successfully coaxed her. Lu did not accept blindly. He asked whether she had truly thought it through. He suspected his identity as a cultivator mattered, and that she might someday expect revenge. Still, an enemy using abduction in mortal affairs was unlikely to be invincible. If Qi became family, Lu was willing to help once he grew stronger. Pursed her lips, gathered her courage, and met his eyes. She had made up her mind. The longer she held his gaze, the deeper her blush spread, all the way to her ears. Lu finally nodded. She would return with him tomorrow, and almost belatedly, he introduced himself. Lu Changsheng. The next day, Qi joined Lu Changsheng and Li Feiyu on the road. She rode in front of Lu on a single spiritual steed, cradling the small 9 netherhound while his arms reached around her to hold the reins. Her face remained flushed, but she did not shrink away. He was now her future husband. Comfort did not make Lu careless. Qi had been intended for an unknown cultivator, and that person might come looking for what had been taken. Lu urged the steeds faster and stayed vigilant throughout the journey, scanning the road and wilderness for pursuit. Li kept pace, but no enemy appeared. The feared pursuit never came. After 7 uneventful days, Lu Changsheng, Li Feiyu, Qi Zhenjian, and the 9 Netherhound reached Qingzhou Mountain safely. Hu had entered the temple as a captive with nowhere to go. She arrived at Lu's home as his intended wife, though gaining entry to a cultivation family's territory would bring rules of its own. 7 days after leaving the ruined temple, Lu Changsheng finally brought Qi Zhenjian and Li Feiyu to Qingzhou Mountain. Safety did not mean unrestricted entry. This was a cultivation family's protected domain, and Lu still lacked the privilege to bring outsiders inside whenever he pleased. The guards recognized Lu and spared him a lengthy interrogation. Qi had no cultivation level and appeared to be an ordinary young woman, so a brief inspection was enough. They let her pass on one condition: Lu had to report her presence to Uncle Fu. After returning the spirit steeds, Lu reported to Uncle Fu. The old administrator stared at the young woman beside him, then silently connected her arrival to Lu's recent questions about marrying freely. So this was why Lu had renegotiated his contract. He meant to bring a wife from outside. One woman was not worth an argument, especially when Lu's talisman work pleased the family. But Uncle Fu's mood changed when he discovered Qi possessed a spiritual root. He warned Lu plainly. Every additional cultivator consumed the limited energy of Qingzhou Mountain's spirit vine. At home, Lu told his wives and concubines what Qi had endured. Rather than treating her as a rival, they surrounded the shaken newcomer with care and welcomed her as another sister. Their kindness gave Qi a place in the household before the wedding had even begun. Acceptance did not erase the terror Qi survived. In an unfamiliar home, she still lacked any sense of security and attached herself to Lu whenever he appeared. He never pushed her away. Instead, he gave her more time each day until, after half a month, caution became trust. Qi told Lu that she came from a scholarly household in Zhoushan Mansion, far away in Qing province. An old evildoer had destroyed the family. Only one possible survivor remained, her brother, Wei Changge, who had already departed for the capital to sit the imperial examination. Qi admitted that her earlier claim of having no family had been deliberate at the time. Lu could not possibly have carried her across the country to search for a missing scholar. Terrified and helpless, she had simply grasped the 2 rescuers who appeared like light in her darkness. The days in Lu's household had confirmed that her desperate choice was the right one. Gratitude had deepened into love, and Qi now believed Lu was a man she could entrust with her whole life. She held nothing back and asked him to help find her brother. When the wedding day came, Lu family disciples and immortal seedlings gathered in amazement. Lu already had 9 wives. To them, an 18-year-old cultivator choosing a 10th looked almost like surrendering his cultivation, especially when they resisted marriage, while family obligations forced it upon them. Lu wanted no grand display. He and Qi simply completed the required wedding rites, then invited the disciples and immortal seedlings of Qingzhou Villa to share a meal. The ceremony was modest, but the crowded table supplied enough noise and warmth to mark Qi's formal entry as his 10th wife. The banquet cost Lu 24 spirit stones, but he returned every gift his guests brought. Most disciples and immortal seedlings already lived difficult, cash-poor lives. Lu could afford the feast, and he had no intention of burdening them or inviting gossip that he had staged a wedding to collect money. One payment Lu did insist on making was a red envelope for Li Feiyu. Li had witnessed the union between him and Qi, and courtesy mattered between brothers. Lu, then gave that friendship a task: write to the Crimson Whale Gang and have its people search for Changsheng. Once most of the meal had been eaten, Lu left the banquet and entered the bridal chamber. We waited on the bed in a phoenix crown and rosy cloud's robe, her face hidden beneath a red veil. Lu softly called, "Zhen." She gave no spoken answer. Only the veil trembled. Morning entered the bridal chamber through sparse bamboo leaves. Its light fell across the red gown, embroidered shoes, silk stockings, and other wedding clothes scattered beside the bed. Beneath the bedding, Zhen slept curled tightly around her new husband. Lu saw dried tears at the corners of Qi's reddened eyes. She had cried for much of the night and still held him as though he might disappear. He could have pulled free, but nothing demanded his attention. He stayed and let her cling. After a while, Qi's eyelashes fluttered open. In a hoarse voice she called, "Husband." Lu smiled, answered that she was awake, and stroked her cheek. Lu offered no further words. She rubbed against his palm and nestled closer to his chest. That quiet morning set the pattern for the days that followed. Lu kept close and gave her the companionship she needed. He also began leading her into cultivation, turning their new marriage into a partnership with consequences beyond ordinary domestic life. The method Lu chose was the Changchun technique, a primary level manual taken as a trophy at Bullhead Mountain. It was not profound, but unlike his returning origin technique, it also preserved youth and health. More importantly, it let him measure how readily Qi absorbed spiritual power. Uncle Fu had only confirmed that Qi possessed a spiritual root. Lu could now go further. From her speed, he preliminarily judged it 8th grade, still a lower grade root, but slightly better than his own 9th grade talent. For Lu, that was already enough. 1 month later, Qi became pregnant. Lu was delighted. She was his first wife with a spiritual root. With both parents possessing one, he estimated their child's chance at 10 to 20%, roughly 10 times the chance when only one parent had the talent. That anticipation reminded Lu of the foundation establishment materials he had purchased at Bullhead Mountain for the Immortal Beauty technique. Rather than leave them unused, he entered seclusion and completed the technique's foundation, converting another hard-won resource into steady personal progress. The result was subtle, not a dramatic remaking. Lu's features and physique simply looked more harmonious, while his temperament and demeanor became naturally easier on the eye. He gave the changes little thought, straightened his clothes, and left the practice room for his family. In the courtyard, Lu found a picture of effortless peace. His eldest son, Lu Ping'an, slept with both arms around the little 9 netherhound. Child and demon beast looked completely at ease together. The household had not always been so relaxed. Lu's wives and concubines had initially feared the demon beast might harm a child. Time proved otherwise. The cub was docile, sleeping whenever it was not eating, and they now tended it while the children treated it as a beloved playmate. 6 days later, another birth expanded the household. Lu's 14th child was a son, but the newborn possessed no spiritual root and no system reward followed his arrival. That absence of joy disturbed Lu more than the result itself. After so many children, a birth without a spiritual root or reward barely moved him. Looking at his 14th son, he understood how ancient emperors could become indifferent even to their own blood. He noticed the change and then drove the thought from his mind. Half a year slipped past inside Qingzhou Valley. Lu Changsheng's 15th and 16th children were born, but neither possessed a spiritual root. Their ordinary births only made his attention settle more intensely on Zhen's growing belly. The household showed no sign of slowing. 5 more wives or concubines had become pregnant. Ku alone was still carrying her first child. The earlier wives and concubines had moved to second pregnancies, while the sisters Lu Xie and Lu Qingge had already begun their third. Lu's days had settled into a dependable rhythm. Meditation in the practice room, then talisman work in the study. At the third level of Qi Refinement, middle-grade talismans no longer troubled him. He could draw them successfully and with ease. Superior-grade work was another matter. Lu's mana and mental spirit were limited. His brush was poor, and his paper and spirit ink were only average. He could brute force only the simpler designs, always risking failure. Skill was not his only bottleneck. Cultivation and equipment mattered. There was little reason to waste those materials now because Lu still could not freely sell what he made. He would wait for stronger cultivation and a better brush. After finishing his work, he wrote to Hong Yi and entrusted the letter to a servant bound for the Lu family post station. Ordinary mail was painfully slow. Hong Yi might not receive the letter for a month or more. Only a transmission talisman could carry truly urgent news. Lu returned to his family, but one sight would not let him relax. Qi large belly reminded him that her brother was still missing. At Qingzhou Villa, Li Feiyu had only bad news. After more than half a year, the Crimson Whale Gang had found no trace of Changsheng. Lu pictured an ordinary scholar crossing thousands of dangerous miles for the imperial examination. An accident or death was entirely possible. Meanwhile, far from Lu's reach, the story opened onto the border between Qing province and Jizhou. Bizarre rocks crowded a precipitous mountain range. Steep cliffs vanished into heavy mist, and visibility died after only a short distance. The unresolved search now had a landscape as dangerous as Lu feared. Back in his practice room, Lu exhaled stale air and assessed his progress. He had reached the peak of the third level, but the path to the fourth no longer felt open. A real bottleneck stood before him, one that would yield only to a long period of grinding effort. Lu did not despair. With his mediocre aptitude, reaching this peak so quickly was already a good result. He knew exactly what he was, a late bloomer. More children would grow, more inherited strength would return to him, and his future would improve with theirs. 11 days later, Changsheng went into labor. Lu waited outside the delivery room until a newborn's cry broke through the door, and at that same instant, something profound stirred within him. A spiritual root. His 17th child possessed one. 6 months of expectation had finally paid off. Lu could not hide his excitement. Several of his wives noticed, and even their gentle temperaments could not prevent a stab of jealousy. To them, this looked like favoritism toward Qua. To Lu, it was evidence. A mother with a spiritual root had changed the odds dramatically. But Lu could not directly see the newborn spiritual root, nor could he inspect the exact change in his own. There was only one honest method. He would cultivate, feel whether his speed had improved, and use that difference to estimate the child's grade. He settled into meditation and waited for the answer. Several hours later, Lu Changsheng opened his eyes and released a deep breath. The test had answered him. His cultivation speed was more than 10% faster than before, which meant Qi newborn possessed a spiritual root slightly better than Lu Xianji's. Lu estimated a 7th or 8th grade, lower grade spiritual root. It was not an astonishing talent, but he felt no disappointment. A child having any spiritual root at all was already precious, and the combined boosts from 2 such children brought his effective cultivation speed close to that of an 8th grade root. The real promise lay in scale. When these children matured, their developed spiritual roots and cultivated strength would feed back to their father. They could also marry and produce descendants who might inherit roots of their own. Enough lower-grade talents accumulated across generations might one day push Lu beyond even the legendary heavenly spiritual root. Then arithmetic intruded on the dream. Lu had planned to send his children into the secular world after they turned 10. At his present pace, however, Lu Ping'an and the eldest group might reach that age, while he already had 70, 80, or nearly 100 children. Qingzhou Valley had never faced anything like it. Steward Lu Bo had already advised him, politely but unmistakably, to pace himself. Lu Yuanding's earlier rule called for children to leave at 6, with perhaps 3 to 5 years of leeway, but that tolerance could not stretch across 100 descendants. Lu needed support beyond the valley before the first departures began. Li Feiyu and the Crimson Whale Gang offered one route into the secular world. Lu now resolved to strengthen his connection with Hong Yi as well. Because the Ruyi Marquis mansion promised firmer protection, he resisted using Lu family branches. Children raised there might be taught to place the clan's interests above their father's household. 2 months slipped by. Lu's 18th and 19th children were born, bringing the household to 19. As expected, neither newborn showed a spiritual root. The result was ordinary, but the swiftly growing family made every question of housing, protection, and future strength more immediate. Lu watched children playing in the yard, wives cradling infants, and pregnant partners sharing the peaceful afternoon. This was exactly what he wanted. Cultivation, family, leisure, and happiness. Yet peace in this world was a fragile bubble. Without strength, one touch of danger could destroy everything before him. Lu quietly vowed to protect this beautiful life and make the family's future better. Then another month passed. The 20th child he had awaited was finally born. No spiritual roots stirred at the birth. But before disappointment could matter, the notification Lu truly expected sounded inside his mind. The system announced it plainly. Congratulations to the host for having 20 children. 1 lottery draw chance gained. Lu's face brightened. The long wait had not disappointed him. He first settled the newborn safely, then left the family room and headed for his study to conduct his 5th draw. In the study, Lu silently commanded the system to draw. More than another weapon or auxiliary art, he wanted a strong cultivation method. Great buildings required solid foundations, and the returning origin technique was too poor to support the future he imagined. A better method could improve both his foundation and his speed. The familiar lottery wheel materialized before Lu's eyes. He watched it spin, hoping this draw would finally answer his need. The light raced across the categories, slowed, and stopped on cultivation techniques. Lu had drawn the kind of reward he wanted. What exact technique awaited him remained hidden for one final heartbeat. The wheel's answer arrived at once. The system congratulated Lu Changsheng on obtaining the 100 Refinements treasure body art and issued it to the system space. Before his eyes, the reward took shape as the translucent pattern of a jade scroll. For an instant, joy rose across Lu's face. Then he read more carefully. This was a body-refining technique. He had finally drawn a cultivation art, yet it was not the Qi Refinement technique. He needed to replace the inadequate returning origin technique. Cultivation was not useless. In the early stages, a hardened physique could repair 2 familiar weaknesses of ordinary law cultivators: poor survival ability and vulnerability at close range. If an enemy reached him before a spell was ready, that strength could decide whether he lived. The cost was the problem. Body refinement consumed more time, more effort, and far more resources than most cultivators could spare. Cultivation level, magical treasures, and divine skills already demanded everything they had. Few could afford to cultivate body and law together merely to fight at arm's length. Lu sighed. His first drawn technique had been supplementary, and now the 5th draw had denied him a proper Qi method again. Still, he refused to waste the gain. More skills would not burden him, and the future he intended to survive demanded a stronger body as well as spiritual power. A closer reading transformed his mood. The 100 Refinements treasure body art was an orthodox level method profound enough to refine the human body toward the qualities of a magic artifact. Its explanation alone hinted at how formidable the result could become at high attainment. Then an alarming question interrupted him. If he refined his body like a magical artifact, could the process make him unable to have children? Ancient books warned that impressive techniques sometimes concealed infertility, mental distortion, or changes in personality. If this art carried such a price, Lu would never cultivate it. Rather than speculate, Lu stirred his mental spirit and activated the 100 Refinements treasure body art. The translucent inheritance responded. Its cultivation method, operating principles, and intricate details surged toward his consciousness all at once, too dense for ordinary reading to convey. The information flooded in like an enlightening elixir. After a long while, Lu opened his eyes and exhaled. Without this direct transmission, even grasping the basics of such a profound orthodox-level art would have been difficult. Attempting to cultivate it without guidance could easily have gone wrong. Most importantly, complete understanding answered his private fear. The art did not carry the corrupting price he had imagined. It belonged to the grand and upright lineage of orthodox-level methods. Lu's fertility and mind were not being traded away for a stronger body. Safety did not mean ease. The method remained profoundly difficult, and its threshold was high enough to deter almost anyone. Understanding the instructions was only the first step. Actually refining the body demanded suitable treasures and a scale of resources that ordinary cultivators could scarcely sustain. Hidden within the art, however, was a method for accelerating progress. Instead of relying only on slow conventional refinement, its practitioner could directly infuse magical treasures into the body, extracting their substance to nourish and construct the treasure body from within. For an ordinary cultivator, that shortcut was almost absurd. Even nascent soul immortals generally possessed only 1 or 2 magic artifacts. Who would feed such priceless weapons into a cultivation method? The fastest route through the art was also the route nearly no one could afford. Lu was not limited like an ordinary cultivator. His lottery had already produced an orthodox-level technique. Future draws might produce magical treasures, or even spiritual treasures. If he infused those rewards into the art, he could cross its high threshold and advance rapidly. The supposedly unsuitable technique fit him remarkably well. Lu did not leave the idea theoretical. He crossed from the study into the practice room and produced a pot-lid-sized lump of black iron. It was the shield taken from 3 robber cultivators at Bullhead Mountain, crushed by the golden brick talisman treasure until every prohibition was destroyed. The shield could no longer function and was worth only scrap, but its metal had once been fit for a magic artifact. That made it usable treasure material. Lu sat cross-legged, gripped the ruined shield, and circulated the new method. His palms reddened as he began extracting the material's essence into his cultivation. On another day, Lu Changsheng was relaxing at his Qingzhou Valley manor, chatting with his wives and concubines. A servant interrupted with a report. Someone outside the mountain wanted to see him and had presented a token. One glance told Lu who stood behind the visit. It was someone from Hong Yi. Lu did not need to assemble the order. In his study, a brocade box already waited, packed with the talismans prepared for this deal. He took it up and left the courtyard at once. Hong Yi's people could not enter Qingzhou Mountain freely, so the exchange had to happen beyond its controlled boundary. What waited outside was no discreet courier. A luxurious carriage stood beneath a flag emblazoned with the words unremarkable. Around it, robust men in fitted black clothes carried long swords and powerful crossbows. Each rode a massive black horse. Their disciplined bearing marked them all as martial arts masters. At the head of the formation stood Hong Yi himself, tall and dressed in luxurious brocade. His purple gold crown and purple robe made him look more dignified and majestic than Lu remembered. Hong stepped forward first, his face open and hearty. "Brother Lu, Long time no see. The grand visit was formal, but the welcome was genuinely warm. Lu had not expected Hong to come personally, much less with such force. Yet the reason was obvious. This was their first transaction, worth more than 100 spirit stones. Even for the Rui Marquis mansion, that was no casual sum. Hong had come to show that he valued the alliance, and to ensure its precious first shipment reached home safely. Lu had agreed to sell at 20% below market price. But it was a calculated concession. Hong offered a stable, discreet channel and came to collect the goods himself. Better still, Lu's production costs were tiny. Most materials were leftovers from his work for the Lu family. With only a token portion purchased to preserve appearances, Hong opened the box. 5 orderly stacks of talismans met his eyes, and joy escaped his guarded expression. This shipment could thoroughly stabilize his position inside the Rui Marquis mansion. If Lu later supplied middle-grade talismans just as reliably, even the position of heir apparent might come within reach. Yet Hong inspected only briefly before closing the lid. He trusted Lu. Hong drew 112 spirit stones from his storage bag and placed them in Lu's hands. Lu noticed the payment was 2 stones short, but let it pass without spoiling the moment. A safe, lasting buyer was worth far more than that tiny difference. He accepted the stones happily, and both men thanked the other for the bargain. The exchange seemed finished. Then Hong smiled and said he had prepared a gift for brother Lu as well. Lu blinked, caught off guard. Hong gave no explanation. He simply turned toward the luxurious carriage, raised a hand, and clapped. Every eye shifted from the completed talisman deal to the curtained carriage. Beside the carriage, a burly figure, apparently a woman, pulled open the door curtain. Crisp bells chimed from the dark interior. The sound arrived before the gift itself, turning the armed roadside meeting strangely theatrical. Then 2 tall silhouettes began to descend, and Lu's surprise sharpened into a wary suspicion. The 2 women looked remarkably alike, yet side by side they could not have felt more different. Their pupils, hair colors, clothing, and temperaments all contrasted, producing a uniquely striking effect. Both were exotic beauties, tall and long-legged, but each carried herself with a distinct rhythm as she walked toward Lu. Their steps were light, white, tender skin and bare feet, painted red with rouge, should have picked up dust from the road, yet not a speck clung to them. Lu understood at once. Both women were martial artists, channeling internal energy into their feet. The elegant entrance concealed genuine training and control. The women stopped before him and bowed with practiced grace. Jua pays respect to the master. Xue pays respect to the master. One voice was soft and seductive. The other was cold as ice, yet no less stirring. Their contrasting charms were unmistakable. So was the meaning of that single word, master. Lu's brows knitted. From the moment the 2 women left the carriage, he had suspected what Hong meant. Now it was confirmed. Jua and Xue themselves were the gift. He could not deny their beauty, or the startling appeal of 2 similar faces carrying opposite charms. But one question overrode the temptation. Since when did people count as gifts? Hong Yi answered Lu's knitted brow with the knowing smile of a man certain he had chosen perfectly. Li Feiyu had apparently described Lu as someone with no hobbies beyond beautiful women. So Hong had purchased Jua and Xue from the White Jade Tower at considerable expense and brought them as a special gift. Hong assured him that both women were pure and had been trained from childhood by the White Jade Tower. They practiced the charming lady elemental cultivation, a martial method whose elemental yin could nourish yang. Hong even claimed that after their first intimacy, their loyalty to Lu would be absolute. Inside, Lu protested. Was he truly a man ruled by lust? His ambition reached far beyond pleasure. Eternal life, immortality, and one day becoming an ancestor. Wives and children were part of surviving and advancing in this world, yet such towering goals had to remain hidden beneath an ordinary, even dissolute, appearance. The problem was not their beauty. Both women were tall, proud, and even slightly taller than Lu. The problem was that neither possessed a spiritual root. With 10 wives and concubines already in his household, any future addition was more valuable to his long plan if she could cultivate and pass that potential onward. Reluctance remained, but Lu made his decision. He accepted Jue and Shuya into his household rather than leave Hong's costly offering unresolved. The 2 women fell in beside their new master, while the completed talisman shipment and payment remained with their new owners. Lu courteously acknowledged Hong's long journey and said he ought to offer him tea. But Qingzhou Mountain did not freely admit outside cultivators, and bringing Hong inside would create needless trouble. Next time, Hong should stop in a nearby city and send Lu a message instead. Hong understood and took no offense. Hong admitted that he might not come personally next time. If Lu could prepare talismans regularly, Hong could send a trusted person instead. Lu calculated that this 100 talisman shipment had taken a long time to accumulate, but 10 per month was sustainable. He therefore promised roughly 30 talismans every 3 months, delighting Hong. Then Lu remembered Changsheng. A full year had passed without news from the Crimson Whale Gang, and Lu privately believed his brother-in-law's chances were poor. Still, Changsheng deserved an answer. Lu asked Hong for one more favor. Use his wider connections to help search for information about the missing scholar. After parting from Hong, Lu led Jue and Shuya back into Qingzhou Mountain. The guarding disciples did not obstruct the mortal women, but they instructed Lu to report the newcomers to Uncle Fu. Lu complied, taking the pair along the familiar mountain route toward Qingzhou Villa. They could not cross the mountain unnoticed. The Lu family disciples stared at the tall, enchanting pair and immediately reached the obvious conclusion. Lu Changsheng was taking concubines again. He already had 10 women, they whispered, yet even the critics had to admit that the newcomers were striking enough to make envy difficult to conceal. Their unusual appearance prompted another theory. Perhaps they came from the western region. One disciple recalled texts describing nations where humans and demons lived together, producing people with strange pupils, horns, extra eyes, wings, or tails. Another dismissed the grand language of divine descendants and called such bloodlines simple mixtures of human and demon. Soon the debate became painfully personal. One disciple wondered whether enjoying life while young might be wiser than endless hardship. His companions loudly insisted that women only slowed cultivation, and that indulgence was the choice of the weak. Their trembling voices betrayed them. They predicted Lu would regret everything in 20 or 30 years, mixing scorn with unmistakable envy. At Qingzhou Villa, Lu formally presented the 2 newcomers to Uncle Fu. The older steward took in Lu, then the tall foreign women, and seemed to run out of words. Whatever private judgment he formed, the report was made, and the pair's arrival was no longer an unexplained breach of mountain procedure. Lu did not rely only on Hong's sales pitch. Before settling the women into his home, he sought the judgment of his trusted friend Li Feiyu, whose experience made him a safer source on such matters. Li's answer eased Lu's remaining concern. Only then was he comfortable taking Jue and Shuya into Qingzhou Valley. Lu finally brought Jue and Shuya into his Qingzhou Valley dwelling. Their exotic beauty drew an immediate response even from the normally virtuous and well-mannered consorts in the back courtyard. Jealous looks spread through the household, and Lu discovered that accepting Hong's gift had been easier than soothing the women already waiting at home. Several days passed after Jue and Shuya entered Lu Changsheng's manor. By then he had learned exactly what Hong Yi's expensive gift meant. Their professional training made the experience utterly different from the proper reserve of his original wives, and the variety of their techniques was dangerously easy to enjoy. The charming lady elemental cultivation was not empty boasting. Its elemental yin nourished him, and Lu could clearly feel his body being conditioned. But Jur and Shui were mortals practicing only a martial-level method. The benefit stopped well short of helping his 100 refinements treasure body art. Lu shook his head and rebuked himself. A few indulgent nights were enough. He could not continue down this path. Ancient emperors might have lost themselves in such pleasures, but he had once ranked first in the immortal sect's questioning heart assessment. With his Tao heart firm, he rose to end Hong Yi's so-called test. Lu had already judged that the timing was right to raise his public standing. In the study, he drew a deliberately rough fire cloud talisman, a first-grade, middle-grade talisman, then went to Lu Bo and announced that his talisman making had advanced. Lu Bo did not think Changsheng would lie about something so serious. Even so, the news was astonishing. He wanted to watch the process himself. Lu readily agreed, adding the careful qualification that his success rate with the Fire Cloud Talisman was still poor. Lu Bo opened his storage bag, laid out paper, ink, and his golden talisman brush, then began. Lu Bo immediately noticed that his hand and spiritual power were remarkably steady. Yet at each difficult turn, the lines jolted and the energy destabilized. The nearly completed first sheet suddenly went up in smoke. Lu Bo stayed silent as Lu tried again. A second sheet failed, then a third, then a fourth. On the fifth attempt, the fumbling lines finally joined, the spiritual power settled, and the fire cloud talisman formed. Lu Bo drew a deep breath. Disbelief had become witnessed fact. The clumsiness had been an act, but the exhaustion was not. 5 middle-grade attempts had consumed substantial spiritual power and mental spirit. Even at the peak of third-level energy refinement, Lu could draw only 5 or 6 middle-grade talismans in a day before the burden became overwhelming. Lu Bo acknowledged how hard Changsheng had worked and offered him some of his own Biu bamboo wine. The gesture was practical as well as congratulatory. After the strain of repeated talisman drawing, the spiritual wine was meant to help him recover. Lu rarely drank and normally had little interest in alcohol, but this wine suited him immediately. It was not spicy, only gently fragrant and mellow. As he took another sip, warmth gathered in his lower abdomen. His fatigue eased, and the nourishing effect on his body was unmistakable. Lu honestly called it the finest wine he had ever tasted. Lu Bo smiled, but stopped him from treating its smooth flavor lightly. Biu bamboo wine had a powerful kick. 1/3 was enough. If Lu drank more, he might become drunk. Lu asked whether Lu Bo had more to sell. Regular use might support the 100 refinements treasure body art, restore him after talisman making, or simply improve an evening. Lu Bo's personal supply was small, but the wine came from the family's Biu spiritual bamboo, and the 5th elder brewed a batch for sale every year. The 5th elder also carried other spiritual wines, so Lu decided to visit and see what he could buy. Lu Bo meanwhile told him to rest. With the successful Fire Cloud Talisman as proof, the manager left to report Lu's advancement to the family head. Lu Bo carried the successful Fire Cloud Talisman straight from Lu Changsheng's manor to a villa in Qingzhou Valley. Family head Lu Yuanding was handling clan affairs when the report landed. Lu Changsheng had advanced to middle-grade first-rank talisman master. Yuanding remembered that Lu Changsheng had only become an elementary talisman master about 2 years earlier. Lu Bo supplied the exact measure. In 16 more days, it would be precisely 2 years. The speed sounded implausible even to the man reporting it. Lu Bo admitted that he had not believed the claim at first either. That was why he had made Lu Changsheng draw in front of him. There had been no second-hand testimony and no room for substitution. Lubo had personally watched the fire cloud talisman take shape. Yuanding took the talisman and examined it himself. The spiritual work was genuine. It was indeed a middle-grade first-rank fire cloud talisman, drawn by the young son-in-law whose monthly assignments had never once given the family cause for complaint. Her progression was staggering. Lu Changsheng had begun with no talisman training at all, explored the craft by himself, and reached elementary mastery in a year and a half. Roughly 2 years later, he had crossed into middle grade. Yuanding slowly exhaled, momentarily unable to describe such talent. Excitement brought an immediate regret. Lu Changsheng might one day become a second-grade talisman master, but he was not born into the Lu family. Yuanding often called him one of their own. In his heart, however, a contracted son-in-law from another clan was still not the same as blood. Soon incense curled through the simple, elegant council chamber of Qingzhou Hall. Lu Yuanding occupied the chief's seat, with senior family members and clan elders lining both sides of the long table. He laid out Lu Changsheng's situation and asked what should be done. The gray-haired great elder answered first. A talent with hope of reaching second grade had to be employed for the Lu family's benefit. They could not allow Lu Changsheng to leave. Coming from the elder who controlled clan finances and stood at the pinnacle of Qi cultivation, the judgment carried weight. The slim third elder, gray at the temples, posed the harder question. Lu Changsheng had lived with the family for only a little over 4 years. Was he truly loyal? Talent could enrich the clan, but only if the man who possessed it continued to regard the clan's interests as his own. Yuanding did not pretend Lu Changsheng was completely loyal. He judged the young man unambitious, content with modest wealth, and possessed of a real if incomplete sense of belonging. More importantly, the previous contract still constrained him. For now, the likelihood of his abandoning the Lu family was low. The practical answer was marriage. A woman of Lu blood, especially one with a spiritual root, could draw Lu Changsheng deeper into the clan while benefiting from his rising status. The fifth elder's words set the elders talking at once, and gave Lu Yuanding a far more personal possibility. Only 3 of Lu Yuanding's children possessed spiritual roots. His eldest daughter, Lu Mioga, had always caused the least worry. She was understanding, diligent in cultivation, and talented in talisman making. Her discipline gave her a path of her own. She did not need her father to secure one through marriage. Lu Miohan was different. Her 6th grade spiritual root was promising, yet she treated cultivation frivolously. Yuanding knew his years as patriarch had left too little time to discipline her, allowing arrogance and willfulness to grow. Inside her father's clan she was protected. Beyond it, that untested pride could bring a devastating loss. By every report, Lu Changsheng was a decent choice. He was honest, steady, and exceptional at talisman making. He liked women and had gathered many wives and children, but he never neglected his proper work. More importantly for a father, he consistently treated his wives and children with care. Lu Changsheng's commoner origins also mattered. His secular family was unlikely to pull him away, and he had already settled on Qingzhou Mountain as half a member of the clan. If his talent reached second grade, Miao Wan and the family would prosper. If it did not, she would still gain a steady husband. The elders and clan seniors were still talking when Lu Yuanding cleared his throat. The room quieted around the chief's seat. He offered his own candidate. Miao Huan was of the right age, and he believed she would make a very good match for Lu Changsheng. The clan elders had barely finished selecting a bride when Lu Yuanding carried their plan into Qingzhou Valley. Inside his second daughter's private residence, the political proposal became painfully personal. Lu Miaohuan stared at her father and demanded to know whether he truly meant to make her marry Lu Changsheng. Her objection was not abstract. Changsheng had already married 9 women from the Lu family, and he still brought women home from outside. Miao Huan had even heard about the 2 seductive beauties from his latest journey. To her, asking for this marriage meant throwing her into the household of an incorrigible womanizer. Lu Yuanding did not deny that Changsheng was flirtatious. Instead, he separated reputation from conduct. The young man was grounded and decent in every other respect. More importantly, he treated his wives and concubines well, showing them consideration and care. That steadiness was precisely why Yuanding could entrust a daughter to him. Then came the fact Miao Wan had not heard. Just yesterday, Lu Changsheng had been promoted to first-grade, middle-grade talisman master. Her anger faltered. That was not a decorative title. It placed him among the clan's genuinely useful technical cultivators and explained why her father had arrived so soon after the council meeting. Changsheng had lived with the Lu family for just over 4 years and studied talisman making for only 3.5. The clan had given him no special training or privileged resources during that rise. Yet he had already reached middle grade, progressing even faster than Miaoge. To Yuanding, that was unmistakable talent. Unless misfortune interrupted him, Yuanding believed Changsheng could eventually become a second-ranked talisman master. That future would benefit the clan, but his final argument was personal. If Miao Huan married such a capable yet steady man, her father could stop worrying about what would become of her. Yuanding had assumed her father was forcing an undesirable husband upon her. The truth was the opposite. Elders and clan seniors already wanted to offer their own granddaughters to Changsheng, and Yuanding had fought to secure the first chance for her. Speaking now as a father, he reminded her that she could not avoid considering her future forever. Qingzhou Mountain held hundreds of Lu disciples, but most would never reach foundation establishment. Arranged marriages linked nearby cultivation families and kept new blood flowing. Changsheng was even safer. A well-behaved live-in son-in-law who already lived among them. Giving him a spiritual-rooted Lu bride would bind his growing craft to the family completely. Miao Huan still pointed to Changsheng's 9th-grade spiritual root and the many women already around him. Yuanding answered that his talisman gift mattered more than the weakness of his root, especially if the clan began investing in him. He did not demand an immediate wedding. The proposal advanced one step. Miao Wan would meet Changsheng at Bamboo Heart Lodge. Elsewhere in Qingzhou Valley, Lu Changsheng knew nothing of that negotiation. He was busy entertaining his children. Wooden horses and toy cars rose under his object-manipulating technique, carrying delighted little riders through the air. Their screams were joyful, and the scene quietly proved the patient domestic care Lu Yuanding had just described. One of Changsheng's wives called out that Lubo had arrived. Changsheng immediately guessed the visit concerned his promotion. He left the children in his wife's care and hurried to the living room. After his respectful greeting, Lubo studied him afresh and nodded. Up close, the newly valuable talisman master looked like a handsome talent indeed. Lubo finally delivered the family head's order. Changsheng was to prepare himself and go to Bamboo Heart Lodge tomorrow for a marriage meeting. Changsheng repeated the message in disbelief. He had wondered whether revealing his middle-grade ability would improve his treatment, but a matchmaking appointment was a reward he had never imagined. The meeting was no casual introduction. Lubo said that Changsheng's advancement and his conduct over the years had convinced the family head to betroth his own daughter to him. Shock became elation. The Lu family was not merely adding another woman to Changsheng's household. Its patriarch was offering him a direct family bond. Only one image rose in Changsheng's mind: Miss Lu Miaoge, dignified, gifted, and fairy-like. For one breath, he believed his public promotion had brought him an almost impossible bride. His excitement made the assumption feel natural, even though Lubo had never spoken her name. Lubo corrected the fantasy with 2 words: second miss. The promised daughter was not the serene Lu Miaoge, but her younger sister, Lu Miaowan. Changsheng's joy stopped short. Tomorrow's meeting had not changed, but the woman waiting at its end was suddenly someone far less predictable. Second miss. Changsheng's impossible fantasy vanished at once. Lubo did not mean the gifted fairy-like Lu Miaoge. The prospective bride was her younger sister Lu Miaowan, the proud beauty in black silk who had already given him one unforgettable warning. Even so, the offer was extraordinary. Miao Huan possessed a 6th grade spiritual root and was Lu Yuanding's own daughter. Changsheng understood the message. His rise to 1st grade, middle grade talisman master had convinced the clan to invest heavily and bind his future to theirs. A memory of long legs and clicking high heels crossed his mind, but Changsheng kept his answer formal. He cupped his hands and promised Lubo that he would arrive on time tomorrow. Whatever the clan intended, he felt no aversion to tightening the bond. His willingness was not simply lust. The journey beyond Lu territory had shown him how dangerous the cultivation world truly was, and now he had a family to protect. With the many sons and blessing system patiently growing stronger inside the Lu family suited him perfectly. One concern refused to disappear. When he had looked too long during their first encounter, Miao Wan had snapped, "Look again, and I'll gouge out your eyes." Changsheng could only hope Lu Yuanding had prepared her for the match, and that her temper was gentler than he feared. He would welcome the marriage, but he would not beg for it. Even a patriarch's daughter with a 6th grade spiritual root was not worth surrendering his dignity. With 4 wives, 6 concubines, and 2 cherished mistresses, he had neither the energy nor the right to invite chaos into a peaceful household. When Changsheng returned to the courtyard, one of his wives immediately noticed his mood and asked whether Lubo had brought happy news. He answered with the safe truth. His talisman path had advanced, and the clan now recognized him as a 1st grade, middle grade talisman master. His wives brightened at once, praising how remarkable their husband had become. Changsheng let them celebrate the promotion, but said nothing about the blind date. Announcing another marriage before either side had agreed would be awkward, and this was one possibility he wanted settled before bringing it home. The next day brought Changsheng to Bamboo Heart Lodge, not far from the heart of Bamboo Lake. Green grass and flowers surrounded the secluded courtyard. Except for the trading meet held on the 1st day of each month, this corner of the estate was usually silent and peaceful. Lubo assured him that the second miss would arrive soon. Then came one earnest instruction. Miao Wan was simpler than she seemed, so Changsheng should be gentle and accommodate her. With Lu Yuanding taking the match seriously, Lubo withdrew outside to guard their privacy. Changsheng did not pace or rehearse. He sat at the courtyard stone table, set out purple sand teaware, and brewed spiritual tea for 2. The careful preparation gave his hands a task, while preserving the unruffled demeanor he intended to carry into the meeting. About half an hour passed in the quiet courtyard. Then the silence acquired a rhythm. Tap, tap, tap. The sound was melodious, measured, and steadily approaching. Changsheng lifted his gaze from the tea and turned toward the path, knowing his prospective bride had arrived. Lu Miaowan emerged along the path, tall and majestic, walking with the aloof pride of a peacock. She had clearly dressed for the occasion. Delicate makeup framed her beauty, while a fitted gown of dark blue and flowing, star-like lights made her seem wrapped in the night sky. The gown was more conservative than the black and gold dress Changsheng remembered. but it still traced her curving figure. Black silk flashed beneath its hem with each step above sumptuous high heels. This was no distant clan prize or anxious memory. Lu Miaohuan, his matchmaking partner, had come. At Bamboo Heart Lodge, Lu Miaohuan greeted Lu Changsheng with a slight nod. The coldness she usually wore had already softened. While he admired the woman before him, she was studying him just as carefully and finding him far more pleasing than she remembered. His features were not delicate on their own, yet together they looked harmonious and handsome. His gentle gaze felt warm rather than hungry. Miaohuan still saw his 9th grade spiritual root and crowded household as flaws, but his talisman talent and appearance made marriage seem acceptable. Changsheng noticed that her attitude was milder than he had feared. He poured her tea himself and raised his cup, remarking on the strange way they had met again. Then he apologized for losing his composure and behaving rudely when they first encountered one another. As they talked, Changsheng revised another assumption. Miaohuan was not truly forbidding. She was a proud family lady who rarely smiled and expected the other person to lead. Once he supplied that initiative, her supposed aloofness became simple reserve. Outside the cottage, Lu Bo quietly used his ability to listen in. Hearing Miaohuan continue the conversation, the old manager's face folded into a delighted smile. Changsheng's experience with multiple wives seemed useful after all. Satisfied that the match was halfway won, Lu Bo stopped listening. Inside, talk turned to the secular world. Miaohuan admitted that its amusements interested her, though she knew little about them. Changsheng offered to accompany her and show her the sights. As for mortal beauties, he said, where could one find a celestial woman like her? The praise was generous, but Changsheng's tone remained even and his eyes clear. He wanted to marry Miaohuan, yet he would not grovel for the privilege. A woman as proud as her would only despise fawning. 4 years of growth in the Lu family had taught him better. Miaohuan had grown up beneath Lu Miaogi's shadow. Her elder sister received the elder's praise, while even Miaohuan's clothing invited criticism. So Changsheng's candid admiration offered something rare. Validation directed at her alone, not at the celebrated sister she so closely resembled. Changsheng did not insult Miaogi. He called her peerless and fairy-like. But he had seen her several times without feeling what he felt upon meeting Miaohuan. It was Miaohuan who made his heart race. His sincerity turned the comparison from empty flattery into a personal choice. He gave that feeling words from another world. When golden wind and jade dew meet, they surpass countless mundane joys. Miaohuan repeated the verse. Her eyes sparkled, and a faint smile opened across her cool face, like a secluded lotus. To Changsheng's surprise, she genuinely loved poetry. Changsheng recited more of the poem, modestly claiming he was not learned enough to explain it fully. But there was a story behind the verse. When he offered to tell it, Miaohuan lifted her chin and agreed. After 4 years in this world, an old memory had finally found its use. Yet an enjoyable conversation was not the same as a workable marriage. Miaohuan wanted a husband wholly devoted to her. For Changsheng, that expectation struck at the future he had already chosen. Attraction, clan status, and even her 6th grade spiritual root could not make the conflict disappear. He could agree now and evade the problem later, but he despised deceiving someone's feelings. Worse, his position within the Lu family was still inferior. A promise made here would not be decorative. The clan could make him honor it. He needed an answer he could actually live by. Changsheng apologized and told her plainly that he understood her intentions. but he needed time to consider her conditions before answering. Miao Wan stared at him. Needed time. He had shown that he liked her. She had agreed to marry him. Why was he not overwhelmed with joy? In Miao Wan's mind, his hesitation transformed the scene. Was she now begging for a marriage he did not want? Her pride could not endure that humiliation. The warmth vanished from her face, replaced by a coldness like an ancient glacier. She rose before Changsheng could soften the blow. Her heels struck a sharp rhythm as she swept out of the pavilion. Changsheng watched her elegant figure retreat and shook his head. Such beauty was beyond his reach for now. Outside, Lubo stared at her frosty face in confusion, then hurried after the second young miss. Lubo soon returned to Bamboo Heart Lodge with the air of a man demanding an explanation. Changsheng met him with a bitter smile. The family head's offer had delighted him, and he genuinely liked Lu Miaohuan. Even so, he said, the two of them were not suited to share a life. Then Changsheng stated the part no polite excuse could conceal. When he first pursued cultivation, he had vowed to marry 100 women and father several hundred children. It sounded outrageous, but it was the life he had chosen. Miao Huan